Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto was the true Grey Jedi, the sage who mastered Lee. GHT and Shadow, Naruto x Ahsoka Tano, Star Wars. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. Convergence of Worlds. The dimensional rift tore through reality like paper, a violent vortex of chakra and something else, something Naruto had never felt before. One moment, he had B.N. channeling the Nine Tails chakra alongside his own nature energy, creating a combination that should have been impossible. The next, space itself seemed to fracture around him, pulling him into a swirling maelstrom of energy that felt both alien and strangely familiar. What the hell is this? Naruto shouted into the void, his voice lost in the roar of cosmic forces. The familiar weight of Kurama's presence within him flared in alarm, the ancient Biju equally baffled by the phenomenon. The journey lasted both an eternity and an instant. When the vortex finally spat him out, Naruto found himself falling through unfamiliar skies. Below him stretched a landscape of massive fungal growths and vibrant flora in shades of blue and purple that shouldn't exist in nature. Above, massive vessels, unlike anything he'd ever seen, exchanged fire in the atmosphere, energy weapons cutting brilliant paths through the clouds. Wind whistled past his ears as he plummeted toward the alien landscape. Naruto forced his body to relax, calling upon his training. This wasn't the time to panic. He'd survived worse, much worse. Forming a familiar hand sign, he summoned a shadow clone beside him in midair. "Grab on," the clone shouted, gripping Naruto's arm and hurling him toward a particularly large mushroom-like growth. Naruto tucked into a roll as he hit the spongy surface, absorbing the impact before sliding down the curved stalk to land in a crouch on the forest floor. "Where the hell am I?" he muttered, scanning the bizarre landscape. Nothing looked remotely like the forests of the Land of Fire or any other nation he'd visited. The air itself tasted different, heavier, more humid, with a faint metallic tang that coated his tongue with each breath. "This is not our world, Kit," Kurama's voice rumbled within his mind. "I sense no familiar chakra signatures anywhere. Even the natural energy feels wrong." Naruto was about to respond when a series of explosions erupted nearby, followed by flashes of red and blue light cutting through the underbrush. The sounds of battle were unmistakable in any world, weapons firing, orders being shouted, the cries of the wounded. Without hesitation, he moved toward the conflict, leaping from one fungal growth to another with the practiced ease of a shinobi. The scene that greeted him defied explanation. Metal beings, machines of some kind, advanced in perfect formation, firing energy weapons at a small group of soldiers in white armor who were clearly outmatched and retreating. Leading the defense was a young woman whose apron immediately caught Naruto's attention. Orange-skinned with distinctive white and blue head tails instead of hair, she wielded twin blades of pure energy that moved like extensions of her body, acting incoming fire with impossible precision. Despite her skill, she and her forces were being pushed back toward a ravine with no escape route. Naruto counted at least 60 of the mechanical sold Ayers against perhaps 15 of the white-armored defenders, many of whom were already wounded. "Hold this position," the orange-skinned woman called out, her voice steady despite the desperation of their situation. "Reinforcements are on the way." One of the armored soldiers beside her took a direct hit to the chest and collapsed. "Commander Tano, the gunship was shot down. No reinforcements are coming." Naruto had heard enough. Whatever conflict this was, the machines showed no emotion, no hesitation, just the relentless advance of programmed killers. The defenders were flesh and blood, fighting for their lives. He didn't need to understand the politics to know which side he would choose. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. 50 perfect copies of Naruto burst into existence, dropping from He canopy of fungal growths to land between the retreating defenders and the mechanical army. The sudden appearance of identical orange-clad warriors froze both sides in momentary shock. The orange-skinned commander's blue eyes widened, her mouth forming a perfect O of surprise. What in the force? The mechanical soldiers halted their advance for only a moment before a monotone voice called out, "Unknown combatants detected. Eliminate all organic resistance." I don't think so. Naruto grinned, the familiar rush of battle pushing away his confusion about this strange world. You guys ready? His clones responded with matching grins, each drawing a kunai. As one, they charged the droid army. The battle that followed was unlike anything either side had witnessed. The droids, Kroger, Aming couldn't account for an enemy that could be everywhere at once, striking from multiple angles with perfect coordination. Naruto and his clones moved like a single organism, years of combat experience guiding their every move. When energy bolts struck his clones, they disappeared in puffs of smoke, but there were always more to take their place. Commander Tano recovered quickly from her shock, seizing the opportunity provided by this unexpected ally. Troopers, regroup and provide covering fire. She leapt into the fray herself, her twin energy blades cutting through droids with practiced efficiency. Naruto found himself fighting alongside her, instinctively adapting to her rhythm as though they had trained together for years. Nice weapons, he called out as he drove a Rasengan T. Hero the chest plate of a larger droid, metal twisting and sparking under the spiraling chakra. I'm Naruto, by the way. The woman executed a perfect flip over an advancing droid, severing its HEA. D mid-rotation before landing gracefully. Ahsoka Tano. Not that I'm complaining, but where did you come from, and how are you making copies of yourself? Long story, Naruto replied, throwing a try-o of kunai to pin an approaching droid to a tree trunk. Very long story, let's focus on surviving first. As the battle progressed, Naruto noticed Ahsoka watching him with increasing fascination, particularly when he used his Rasengan or nature transformation techniques. The remaining white-armored soldiers, clones, she called them, though they were nothing like his shadow clones, fought with EWED vigor now that the odds had shifted. Within 20 minutes, the last of the battle droids lay in scattered pieces across the fungal forest floor. Naruto dismissed his remaining shadow clones, sudden influx of their experiences giving him a complete picture of the battlefield. The defenders had lost 3 more men despite his intervention, bringing their number down to 11 plus Ahsoka. Commander. One of the soldiers approached, his helmet now removed to reveal a face that looked identical to several others in the group. We've secured the area, but more clankers are bound to come. Investigating when this patrol doesn't report in. Ahsoka nodded, her eyes never leaving Naruto. Get the wounded ready for transport, Rex. We need to reach the extraction point. She finally turned to address her captain. And inform the Jedi Council we've encountered someone unusual. Very unusual. Naruto rolled his shoulders, feeling the familiar post-battle mixture of adrenaline and fatigue. So, I'm guessing this isn't the land of fire. Or anywhere in the elemental nations. Ahsoka's white facial markings rose in what he assumed was the equivalent of raised eyebrows. Land of fire. No, this is Felucia. Outer Rim territories. When Naruto's expression remained blank, she added, in the mid-rim. Galactic Republic territory, currently contested by separatist forces. Yeah, none of that means anything to me, Naruto admitted, scratching the back of his head. I think I'm a long way from home. For the first time, Ahsoka's serious expression softened slightly. You really have no idea where you are. Do you? Last thing I remember, I was combining my sage chakra with Kurama's. That's complicated, and then everything just tore apart. Next thing I know, I'm falling through the sky onto this weird mushroom planet. Chakra, Ahsoka repeated, her head tails twitching slightly. Is that what you call the Force? The what now? Their conversation was interrupted as Captain Rex returned. Commander, we've got incoming. Separatist drop ships, at least 3 of them. Ahsoka's expression immediately shifted back to that of a commander. We can't face that many with our current numbers. How far to the extraction point? 5 clicks east, through the thickest part of the jungle. She nodded decisively. Then that's where we're going. Double time. Her eyes found Naruto again. You're coming with us. The Jedi Council will want to meet you, and frankly, I have about 1,000 questions myself. Naruto weighed his options. He was in an unknown world, with no idea how to get home. These people, particularly this Ahsoka, had shown him no hostility, and they clearly stood against those emotionless machines. Plus, this Jedi Council sounded important. If anyone could help him understand what had happened, it would be the authorities of this world. Lead the way, he agreed. But I warn you, I'm pretty fast. Ahsoka's mouth quirked in a small smile. So am I. Try to keep up. They moved through the fungal forest at a pace that would have exhausted ordinary humans, but Naruto matched Ahsoka stride for stride. The wounded were carried by their comrades, slowing the group somewhat, but they maintained a steady pace. Behind them, the sounds of drop ships and mechanical patrols grew increasingly distant. So, Ahsoka said as they ran, her breathing remarkably controlled. Those energy techniques you were using. That's not like any force ability I've ever seen. And I've never seen anyone use laser swords before, Naruto countered. What do you call those things? Lightsabers. Standard weapon of a Jedi. She twirled one hilt in her hand with casual expertise. Though mine are shorter than most, Shoto blades, better suited for my fighting style. Jedi, Naruto repeated. That's what you are, some kind of warrior order. Ahsoka nearly missed a step, giving him an incredulous look. You really aren't from around here. The Jedi Order has maintained peace in the Republic for over 1,000 generations. We're peacekeepers, diplomats, though these days, mostly generals. A note of weariness entered her voice at that last part. Sounds a bit like the shinobi system where I'm from, except we've never been great at the peace part, Naruto admitted. Too many wars between our villages. Though things were getting better, before. He gestured vaguely at their surroundings. Shinobi, is that what you are? Yeah, a ninja from Konohagakure, the village hidden in the leaves. One of the 5 great shinobi nations in the Land of Fire. Ahsoka processed this information silently for a moment. And the copies of yourself. The spiraling energy technique, is that common where you're from? The shadow clone jutsu is advanced, but not unheard of. The Rasengan is, well, that was my father's technique. He was the 4th Hokage, our leader. Pride crept into Naruto's voice despite himself. Not many can use it. It's impressive, Ahsoka acknowledged. Almost like a concentrated force push, but with rotation and containment. She studied him as they ran. You know, the force feels different around you. Wild, untamed, but incredibly powerful. The council is definitely going to be interested. They continued through the forest, conversation flowing surprisingly easily between them despite the circumstances. Naruto explained the basics of chakra, the combination of physical and spiritual energies, while Ahsoka described the force as an energy field created by all living things, binding the galaxy together. Though the terminology differed, Naruto recognized striking similarities to the concepts he knew. So this force, he said as they approached what Ahsoka called the extraction point, a small Clea ring where a vessel would apparently pick them up. It sounds a lot like natural energy, or maybe a combination of that and regular chakra. And you Jedi trained to use it? Ahsoka nodded. From childhood, the Force can guide our actions, enhance our physical abilities, allow us to sense things before they happen. Some Jedi can even influence the minds of others, though that's used sparingly. Sounds like a mix of ninjutsu and genjutsu. Though the mind trick part is a bit creepy. Says the guy who can make 50 copies of himself, she retorted with a smirk. Their easy banter halted as they reached the clearing. In the distance, the distinctive sound of engines approached, but from the wrong direction. Vulture droids, Rex called out, raising his weapon. The extraction point is compromised. Ahsoka's expression hardened. Change of plans. We make for the abandoned temple 2 clicks north. We can hold out there until Republic forces break through the blockade. As the group changed course, Naruto fell into step beside her. I could scout ahead, he offered. My shadow clones can cover more ground, and if they're destroyed, I still get their memories. Ahsoka gave him a measuring look, then nodded. Do it. We need to know what we're walking into. Naruto formed the hand sign, creating 10 shadow clones that immediately dispersed in different directions. The remaining G-clone troopers watched with unconcealed fascination despite their professional demeanor. Handy trick, Rex commented. Would make recon a lot easier. It has its uses, Naruto agreed, then sud. NLY stiffened as the first clone's memories flooded back. 3 squads of those battle droids approaching from the northeast, about half a click out. Ahsoka's eyes widened slightly. You already know. My clone was spotted and destroyed. Like I said, I get their memories when that happens. That's incredibly useful, she muttered, clearly reassessing his capabilities. Rex, adjust our course southwest. We'll circle around to approach the temple from the rear. They continued their journey, Naruto periodically receiving information from his dispersed clones. The temple Ahsoka had men. Qian turned out to be an ancient stone structure, partially reclaimed by Felucia's aggressive flora. Massive roots and fungal growths had broken through walls and ceilings, but the core structure remained sound, and more importantly, defensible. As they approached, the final clone's memories returned to Naruto. All clear inside, he reported. There's a large central chamber with multiple exits, and what looks like some kind of, I don't know, altar. Weird symbols everywhere. Ahsoka nodded. It's an ancient Force temple. Abandoned for centuries, but the Force still resonates strongly here. It might help mask our presence from separatist scanners. The group entered the temple cautiously, the wounded placed in the central chamber while Rex organized a defensive perimeter. Ancient carvings covered the walls, humanoid figures wielding what Naruto recognized as lightsabers, along with symbols he couldn't decipher. How long until your people come for us? Naruto asked, studying the carvings with curiosity. Hard to say. Could be hours, could be days. Ahsoka's voice carried the weight of someone accustomed to uncertain combat situations. The space battle above is still raging. Until the Republic fleet breaks through, we're on our own. Naruto nodded, understanding the situation. Then we should prepare for a siege. I can help with traps around the perimeter. Good idea. She gestured to two of the clone troopers. Boomer, Sketch, go with him. Your explosive expertise might complement his techniques. As they moved to secure the temple's surroundings, Ahsoka called after him. Naruto, thank you for helping us back there. You didn't have to. He turned, offering her a genuine smile. Where I come from, we don't abandon people who need help. It's our ninja way. Something in his words seemed to resonate with her. The Jedi have a similar philosophy. Though lately, with the war, she shook her head. It's become complicated. War has a way of doing that, Naruto agreed. A shadow passing over his features as memories of his own world's conflict surfaced. For the next few hours, Naruto worked alongside the clone troopers to establish a defensive perimeter around the temple. He was impressed by their professionalism and adaptability. Though they initially viewed his shadow clones and chakra techniques with suspicion, they quickly recognized their tactical advantages. So you're all clones? Naruto asked as he helped Boomer rig trip wires connected to explosive charges. Like actual biological copies of the same person. Bred for combat, Boomer confirmed. His voice identical to Rex's and the others. Millions of us, all based on the genetic template of Jango Fett. Accelerated growth, combat training from birth. Naruto frowned. That sounds, I don't know, wrong somehow. In my world, shadow clones are just temporary techniques, not actual people. Boomer shrugged, seemingly unbothered. It's all we know. We serve the Republic, fight alongside the Jedi. It's what we were made for. But you're individuals, Naruto pressed. You have different names, different personalities. The Kaminoans, our creators, would call that a flaw, Boomer said with a dry chuckle. But yes, we develop our own identities. Commander Tano treats us as individuals. Some Jedi don't. Naruto filed that information away, his perspective on this strange new world growing increasingly complex. When they returned to the central chamber, they found Ahsoka seated cross-legged on the stone floor, eyes closed in meditation. She opened them as they approached, rising smoothly to her feet. Perimeters secure, Naruto reported. We've set traps that should slow down any approach, and my clones are stationed as an early warning system. Good work. She gestured to a makeshift communication array Rex had assembled. I've managed to get a weak signal through to our forces in orbit. They're still engaged with separatist cruisers but XP. Court to break through within 12 standard hours. So we hold until then, Naruto concluded. That's the plan. Ahsoka studied him for a moment. You should rest while you can. You expended a lot of energy with those techniques of yours. Quote, Naruto rolled his shoulders. I've got pretty good stamina. One of the perks of being a Jinchuriki, that's someone with a tailed beast sealed inside them. He patted his stomach, where the seal containing Kurama lay. Long story. Ahsoka's eyes widened slightly. You have a creature, sealed inside you. Yep, Kurama, the nine-tailed fox. We didn't get along at first. But now we're partners. Naruto grinned, then sobered. Though he's been quiet since we arrived here, I think the transition affected him too. I'm conserving my energy, Kurama's voice rumbled within him. This place, the energy here feels strange. Not hostile, but different. Be cautious, Naruto. He says he's being cautious about this place, Naruto translated. The energy, the force, I guess, feels strange to him. Ahsoka took a step closer, her expression a mixture of caution and fascination. You can communicate with this being. Right now, yeah, we have a mental link. Naruto tapped his temple. He can see and hear everything I do. Remarkable, Ahsoka murmured. There are legends of Jedi forming symbiotic bonds with creatures strong in the Force, but nothing like this. She hesitated, then asked, would he mind if I tried to sense him through the Force? Naruto conveyed the question to Kurama, who grumbled but agreed. He says it's fine, but don't try anything funny. He's kind of protective. Ahsoka nodded seriously, then raised her hand, not quite touching Naruto's chest. Her eyes closed in concentration. For several moments, nothing seemed to happen. Then her eyes flew open in shock. By the Force, she whispered. It's like a sun is burning inside you. So much power, ancient and wild, but contained, harmonized with your own energy. She lowered her hand, shaking her head in amazement. The council definitely needs to meet you. Is that good or bad? Naruto asked warily. Honestly, I'm not sure, Ahsoka admitted. The Jedi are cautious about unusual Force manifestations, especially powerful ones. Well, where I'm from, people were pretty wary of Jinchuriki too, Naruto said with a shrug. I'm used to proving myself. Before Ahsoka could respond, one of Naruto's clones dispersed itself intentionally, sending information flooding back to him. Droids, he announced. 2 squads approaching from the east, about 10 minutes out. Ahsoka was instantly alert, her casual demeanor replaced by that of a commander. Rex, get the men in position. Looks like we'll have company sooner than expected. The following hours blurred into a cycle of attacks and brief respites. The separatist forces seemed determined to capture or eliminate the Republic troops, sending wave after wave of battle droids against the temple. What they lacked in quality, they made up for in sheer numbers. Naruto fought alongside Ahsoka and the clone troopers, his shadow clones and ninjutsu proving invaluable in the confined spaces of the temple. He adapted quickly to the droids' predictable patterns, using Earth-style jutsu to collapse passages and wind techniques to deflect blaster fire. At one point, he combined his Rasengan with Ahsoka's force push, creating a devastating shockwave that decimated an entire platoon of droids. We make a good team, she commented during a brief lull, wiping sweat from her brow. Despite hours of combat, her movements remained precise and graceful. Yeah, we do, Naruto agreed, genuinely impressed by her skills. She fought with a combination of acrobatic flair and discipline. Precision that reminded him somewhat of Rock Lee, but with an intuitive flow that seemed guided by this force, she described. As night fell on Felucia, the attacks finally ceased. Whether the separatists were regrouping or waiting for reinforcements, the respite was welcome. The wounded clones were stable but needed proper medical attention soon. Rations were shared, tasteless nutrient bars that Naruto grimaced through, longing for a bowl of Ichiraku ramen. In the quiet hours, seated near one of the temple's broken windows overlooking the glowing fungal forest, Naruto and Ahsoka finally had time for a proper conversation. The moons of Felucia cast an ethereal light over the landscape, turning the already alien scenery into something from a dream. So, Ahsoka began, her voice soft in the stillness. Tell me about your world. Your home. Naruto gazed out at the unfamiliar stars. It's nothing like this. No space travel, no droids, no laser swords. Lightsabers, she corrected with a small smile. Right, lightsabers. He returned the smile. We have our own kind of magic. Ninjutsu, genjutsu, taijutsu. Different nations, hidden villages where shinobi train from childhood to serve their people. Not unlike the Jedi, then, Ahsoka observed. We begin training as younglings, learning to use the Force to protect the Republic. What's this Republic exactly? Sounds big. Thousands of star systems. united under a single government. Democracy, in theory, though the war has changed things. A note of concern entered her voice. The Clone Wars have been raging for nearly 3 years now. The Separatist Alliance, backed by corporate interests and led by Count Dooku, a former Jedi turned Sith, is trying to break away from Republic control. And the Sith are bad Jedi. Ahsoka's expression darkened. The Sith use the dark side of the Force, drawing power from fear, anger, hatred. They seek dominance, not balance. The Jedi have opposed them for millennia. Dark side, Naruto contemplated this. We don't really divide chakra that way. I mean, there are forbidden techniques that sacrifice lives or hurt the user, but chakra itself is just energy. How, why? You use it matters more than what kind it is. An interesting perspective, Ahsoka said thoughtfully. The Jedi teach that the dark side is inherently corrupting, that once you start down that path, it consumes you. Naruto thought of Sasuke, of Gaara, of his own struggles with the Nine Tails hatred. In my experience, darkness exists in everyone. Controlling it, understanding it, that's the challenge. Not pretending it isn't there. Something flashed across Ahsoka's features, recognition, perhaps, or consideration of an idea that resonated but conflicted with her training. You mentioned your village's philosophy earlier, the ninja way, she prompted, changing the subject slightly. The will of fire, Naruto nodded, warming to the topic. It's the belief that love is the key to peace. That by loving, cherishing, and protecting the village and its people, we create a stronger community and a better world. Every Hokage, our leader, passes this will to the next generation. Love, Ahsoka seemed surprised. That's not what I expected from a warrior culture. What about the Jedi? What do you believe in? Ahsoka recited as if from memory. There is no emotion, there is peace. There is no ignorance, there is knowledge. There is no passion, there is serenity. There is no chaos, there is harmony. There is no death, there is the Force. Sounds restrictive, Naruto observed. No emotion, no passion. How do you fight for what you believe in without feeling strongly about it? It's not about having no emotions, Ahsoka clarified, though she sounded like she was trying to convince herself as well. It's about not being controlled by them. Attachments are forbidden for Jedi because they can lead to fear of loss, which can lead to the dark side. Where I'm from, our bonds make us stronger. My friends, my mentors, the people who believed in me when no one else did, they're the source of my strength. Naruto's voice grew passionate. I wouldn't be half the shinobi I am without them. Ahsoka was silent for a long moment, watching the bioluminescent forest pulse with life. I used to believe completely in the Jedi Code, she finally said. But the war, seeing the things I've seen, sometimes I wonder if we've lost our way. If we're so focused on winning conflicts that we've forgotten what we're fighting for. The vulnerability in her admission touched Naruto. Despite their different origins, he recognized in her the same questioning spirit that had driven his own growth. Maybe that's the problem with any rigid system, he suggested gently. The world isn't black and white. People aren't all good or all bad. Sometimes you have to find your own path. That's a dangerous thought for a Jedi, Ahsoka murmured, but there was no censure in her tone, only thoughtful consideration. Their conversation continued deep into the night, trading stories and philosophies. Naruto told her about Pain's invasion of Konoha, about confronting hatred with understanding rather than more violence. Ahsoka shared her experiences as Anakin Skywalker's Padawan, the horrors of war she'd witnessed, and her growing concerns about the Republic's militarization. By the time exhaustion finally claimed them, Naruto felt he had found a kindred spirit in this strange galaxy, someone who understood the burden of power and responsibility, the struggle to remain true to oneself while serving a greater cause. Morning brought renewed separatist attacks, but also the welcome sound of Republic gunships breaking through the planet's atmosphere. The space battle had finally turned in the Republic's favor, allowing reinforcements to reach the stranded group. As they prepared to evacuate, Ahsoka approached Naruto one last time. The Jedi Council has requested your presence on Coruscant. They sensed the disturbance when you arrived in our galaxy, and reports of your abilities have raised questions. Am I under arrest or something? Naruto asked, only half joking. No, Ahsoka assured him. Consider yourself an honored guest. But Naruto, she hesitated, then continued more quietly, the council can be set in their ways. Be honest, but be careful what you reveal about your powers. Some might see them as a threat rather than a gift. Naruto nodded, understanding her warning. I've dealt with suspicious authorities before. Don't worry about me, I'll be with you, she promised. After what you did for us here, the least I can do is help you navigate our world. The Republic cruiser that received them was unlike anything Naruto had seen. A massive vessel floating through the void of space, filled with technology that seemed like magic to him. Standing at a viewport, watching Felucia shrink to a glowing orb and then vanish as the ship entered hyperspace, Naruto felt the full weight of his situation for the first time. He was literally in another universe, with no clear way home, surrounded by a civilization so advanced it made the 5 great nations seem primitive by comparison. The familiar fear of isolation, the orphan's dread of being truly alone, threatened to overwhelm him. You are not alone, Kit, Kurama reminded him. I am here, and you seem to have found an ally in the Togruta female. Ahsoka, Naruto corrected absently. Yeah, she's different from what I expected a warrior monk to be. More human. This force they speak of, it resembles our chakra, yet feels more connected to all living things, like nature energy but more pervasive. Perhaps that is why the dimensional rift brought you here, some resonance between your sage chakra and this cosmic energy. You think we can get back? Perhaps, but not without understanding how we arrived in the first place. Naruto sighed, watching stars streak past at impossible speeds. So I'm stuck learning about this force. Either way, consider it an opportunity, not a punishment, Kurama suggested, surprising Naruto with his philosophical tone. You have always grown stronger when facing the unknown. The fox had a point. Every challenge, every seemingly impossible situation, had ultimately led to growth. This would be no different. Ahsoka found him still at the viewport hours later, deep in thought. She stood beside him in comfortable silence for a moment before speaking. We'll reach Coruscant tomorrow. Council has been informed of your arrival. What did you tell them about me? Naruto asked. The truth, that you appeared during our battle on Felucia, that you possess abilities unlike any Force user I've encountered. And that you claim to be from another world entirely. She offered a reassuring smile. I also told them you saved my life and the lives of my men, multiple times. Thanks for that part. It's just the truth. Ahsoka studied his profile. You're worried about meeting them. It wasn't a question, but Naruto answered anyway. A little. In my world, I was just starting to be accepted after years of being feared and mistrusted because of Kurama. Now I'm back to being the unknown variable, the potential threat. Ahsoka hesitated, then placed a hand on his arm. The gestu was small but conveyed genuine empathy. For what it's worth, I believe you're exactly where you're meant to be. The Force works in mysterious ways, Naruto Uzumaki. Your arrival may have more purpose than either of us can see right now. Quote, her words brought an unexpected comfort. Whatever this new world held, whatever challenges awaited him among these Jedi, he would face them with the same determination that had carried him through every trial before. Well, he said, flashing his trademark grin, I've never been good at giving up. Believe it. Ahsoka raised an eyebrow at his catchphrase but returned his smile. Somehow, I don't doubt that. Get some rest. Tomorrow, you meet the Jedi Council. As she walked away, Naruto turned back to the viewport, the streaking stars reminding him of the paths of Kunai cutting through the night. Different world, different rules, but some things remained constant. The need to protect, to grow stronger, to forge connections. Whatever happened next, he would face it head on. As he always had. That was his ninja way. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, The Shinobi Among Stars. Coruscant materialized from hyperspace like an impossible jewel, a planet-wide metropolis glittering against the void. From the viewport of the Republic cruiser, Naruto pressed his palms against the transparisteel, eyes widened in disbelief. Sprawling cityscape covered every visible landmass. Layers upon layers of urban development reaching skyward. Streams of traffic flowed between towering spires in orderly patterns, vehicles moving at speeds that made his head spin. That's all one city, he whispered. Beside him, Ahsoka nodded. The entire planet. Over 1,000,000,000 beings from across the galaxy live here. 1,000,000,000,000. The number meant nothing to Naruto, a concept too vast to comprehend. The combined population of all 5 great nations wouldn't even register as a rounding error in such a place. It's the capital of the Republic, Ahsoka continued, her voice softening at his obvious amazement. The Jedi Temple is there. She pointed toward an imposing 5-spurred structure rising above the surrounding buildings. As their shuttle descended through the atmosphere, Naruto's senses were overwhelmed. The sheer scale defied comprehension. Endless canyons of durasteel and transparasteel, artificial light drowning out any hint of natural landscape. Hey, opal of species he couldn't begin to identify moved through the vertical cityscape like insects in a hive. This makes even the hidden villages seem primitive, Kurama observed within his mind. An entire world consumed by civilization. I sense billions of life forms, yet almost no natural energy. Disturbing. Naruto silently agreed. For someone who had grown up surrounded by forests and mountains, the complete absence of nature felt suffocating. Yet there was undeniable magnificence to the achievement. Humanity, or whatever these beings considered themselves, imposing order on an entire planet. Their shuttle banked toward the Jedi Temple, giving Naruto his first close view of the structure. 5 spires rose from a massive rectangular base, the central tower tallest among them. Omething about the building resonated with him, a sense of ancient purpose and quiet power. That's quite a headquarters, he managed. The temple has stood for thousands of years, Ahsoka explained. As they approached a landing platform extending from one side. It was built over an ancient force nexus, a place where the force naturally concentrates. The shuttle settled onto the platform with barely a tremor. Naruto followed Ahsoka down the ramp, squinting against Coruscant's harsh sunlight. A welcoming committee awaited them, 3 robed figures standing with perfect composure despite the wind at this elevation. Masters. Ahsoka greeted them with a respectful bow. May I present Naruto Uzumaki, the visitor I reported from Felucia. Naruto studied the 3 Jedi Masters with interest. The tallest was a bearded human male with an air of quiet authority. Beside him stood a diminutive green being with large ears and ancient eyes that immediately reminded Naruto of the great Toad Sage. The third was a dark-skinned human whose stern expression was softened only slightly by curiosity. Naruto Uzumaki, the bearded man, spoke first, his accent crisp and refined. I am Obi-Wan Kenobi. These are Masters Yoda and Mace Windu. On behalf of the Jedi Council, welcome to the temple. Thanks for having me, Naruto replied, unsure of the proper protocol. Should he bow, shake hands? He settled for a respectful nod, deciding to follow Ahsoka's lead. Unusual you are, the small green master, Yoda said, his syntax strange to Naruto's ears. Different your energy feels, like the Force, yet unlike. Interesting, yes, very interesting. Master Windu's expression remained unreadable. Commander Tano's report detailed abilities that would be concerning if we didn't have our first-hand account of your assistance against separatist forces. I just did what anyone would do, Naruto shrugged. Those droids were attacking people. Where I come from, we don't stand by when that happens. Noble sentiment. Master Yoda nodded, his ears twitching slightly. But curious we are, about your origins, yes. About this chakra you possess. Perhaps this conversation is better continued inside, Obi-Wan suggested, gesturing toward the temple entrance. The full council is assembled and waiting. Naruto caught Ahsoka's eye, silently questioning. She gave a small nod of encouragement, though her expression held a hint of tension. Whatever awaited him inside, she seemed both supportive and somewhat concerned. They proceeded through massive doors into the temple proper. Naruto immediately felt the difference in the atmosphere, not just the physical change from Coruscant's processed air to the temple's more natural circulation, but something deeper. The building hummed with an energy that resonated with his own chakra, though in ways he couldn't articulate. This place was built on power, Kurama observed. Old power, layered and complex. Be watchful, Kit. Groups of younglings, children of various species dressed in simple robes, watched their procession with undisguised curiosity. Older Jedi in the corridors paused respectfully as the masters passed, many directing questioning glances at Naruto. His orange and black outfit stood in stark contrast to the muted browns and creams of Jedi attire. "Your counsel?" Naruto asked quietly as they walked. "What exactly do they want from me?" Quote, "Understanding," Obi-Wan replied without turning. "Your arrival created a disturbance in the Force that every Jedi in the galaxy felt. Nothing like it has been recorded in our archives." That wasn't entirely reassuring. Naruto had experienced enough suspicion in his life to recognize it, however politely phrased. They entered a turbolift that carried them upward to the central spire. When the doors opened, they revealed a circular chamber with 12 seats arranged in a perfect ring. Most were already occupied by Jedi Masters, some physically present, others appearing as blue-tinted holograms. "Whoa," Naruto whispered. "Holograms. They're not really here. Some Masters are leading Republic forces across the galaxy," Ahsoka explained softly. "They attend via holographic projection." The diversity of species represented on the council would have been shocking to someone from the elemental nations, where variations between people were minimal compared to the wildly different evolutionary paths evident here. Naruto tried not to stare at a master whose head featured tentacle-like appendages or another whose elongated head housed 4 horns. Obi-Wan and the other masters took their seats, leaving Naruto standing in the center of the circle with Ahsoka slightly behind him. Sunlight streamed through the large windows, illuminating dust motes in lazy spirals. "Naruto Uzumaki," Master Windu began formally. "Padawan Tano has reported the circumstances of your arrival on Felucia and your subsequent assistance against separatist forces. The Council thanks you for your aid to Republic personnel." Naruto nodded, waiting for the inevitable questions. "However," Windu continued, "your presence raises significant concerns. According to Padawan Tano, you claim to be from another world entirely, one outside our known galaxy. Furthermore, you possess abilities that resemble Force techniques but operate on different principles." "That's right," Naruto confirmed. "Where I'm from, we call it chakra, a combination of physical and spiritual energy. Every living person has it, though shinobi like me train to use it for various techniques. And this world of yours, it has no contact with the Republic. No knowledge of the greater galaxy." This came from a female Togruta master whose facial markings resembled Ahsoka's. "None," Naruto shook his head. "We don't have space travel or anything like that. Our technology is, well, much simpler than yours. Yet your personal abilities appear quite advanced," Obi-Wan observed. Padawan Tano described techniques that would challenge even experienced Jedi Masters. Naruto scratched the back of his head, unsure how to respond without seeming boastful. "I've had good teachers, and lots of practice. Sense deception, I do not," Master Yoda interjected, his ancient eyes fixed on Naruto. "But curious, I remain, about the darkness within you. Contain it you do, control it you do, but present it is." The atmosphere in the room chilled perceptibly. Naruto felt several masters shift in their seats, their attention sharpening. "You mean Kurama," he realized. "The 9-tailed fox sealed inside me. Explained this entity, Padawan Tano has," Yoda nodded. "But unusual it is, to harbor such power willingly." Naruto took a deep breath. This was familiar territory, the suspicion, the fear of what he contained. "Kurama and we weren't always allies. He was sealed inside me when I was a baby, against both our wills. For years, his power leaked into mine, especially when I was angry or afraid. But eventually, we came to understand each other. Now we're partners." "You speak of this being as if it has consciousness," observed a serene master with an elongated cranium. "He does," Naruto confirmed. "He's ancient and powerful, but he's not evil. Just misunderstood for a long time." "Could we communicate with this entity?" Obi-Wan asked, stroking his beard thoughtfully. Naruto glanced inward. "What do you think, Kurama? Want to chat with the monk council?" The fox snorted. "I have little interest in explaining myself to beings who already fear what they don't understand. But if it helps our situation." "He's willing," Naruto told the council. "But I'm not sure how. Usually, people have to enter my mindscape to speak with him directly." "Perhaps a force meld," suggested one of the holographic masters. "If the young man is willing, several of us could establish a connection to sense this being's nature. Naruto shrugged. I've got nothing to hide. But fair warning, Kurama can be a bit grumpy with strangers. This earned him a mental growl from the fox and, surprisingly, a small smile from Master Yoda. Proceed, we will, the ancient master decided. Master Kenobi, Master Plo, assist me you shall. Obi-Wan and a Keldor master with a breathing mask rose from their seats, approaching Naruto. They formed a triangle around him, while the other council members observed with varied expressions of curiosity and caution. Relax your mind, Obi-Wan instructed. We will not probe your thoughts or memories, only seek to sense the nature of the entity within you. Naruto nodded, closing his eyes and steadying his breathing as he would for sage mode. He felt gentle pressure against his consciousness, nothing invasive, but a definite presence seeking connection. Within his mindscape, Kurama shifted, his massive form illuminated by the ethereal light of Naruto's inner world. The fox's 9 tails swayed behind him as he opened one massive eye. So these are the vaunted Jedi, he rumbled, his voice reverberating through Naruto's mind and, through the Force connection, to the 3 masters. Guardians of peace who fight an endless war. How contradictory. Naruto felt the masters' surprise at both the clarity and the power behind Kurama's consciousness. There was no denying the ancient wisdom and strength in the Biju's presence. I am Kurama, one of the 9-tailed beasts created by the Sage of 6 Paths. For generations, I have been sealed within human hosts, Jinchuriki, used as weapons and feared for my power. Naruto is different. He saw beyond the hatred to the pain beneath. He offered partnership instead of dominance. That is why I lend him my strength willingly. Remarkable, Obi-Wan's mental voice echoed in the shared space. The bond between you is unlike anything in our records. Your records are incomplete then, Kurama replied dismissively. The universe is vast, and your understanding of it limited. Even in our world, few comprehended the true nature of Biju. We are not mere beasts of chakra, but conscious beings with our own wills. Adversaries once you were, Master Yoda observed, his mental presence surprisingly strong despite his physical frailty. Now allies. Changed. How did this? Images flickered through the shared mindscape, Naruto confronting his darker self during the waterfall training. The moment he removed the seal during the war, their combined effort against Madara and Kagaya. Emotions accompanied each image. Respect grudgingly earned, trust painfully built. Partnership forged in shared struggle. He proved worthy, Kurama said simply. Few humans ever have. The connection gradually dissolved, leaving Naruto slightly dizzy as he opened his eyes to find the 3 masters returning to their seats. The council chamber was utterly silent, each master processing what they had experienced. Thank you, Obi-Wan finally said. That was most illuminating. Indeed, Master Plo's modulated voice agreed. The being's power is immense, but I sensed no malevolence toward young Uzumaki or others, only a protective instinct and grudging respect. Master Windu leaned forward, his expression grave. Even so, such power, combined with your own abilities, makes you potentially dangerous, Naruto Uzumaki. Not through any ill intent on your part, but through the simple reality of what you represent, an unknown quantity in already uncertain times. With respect, Master, Ahsoka spoke up from behind Naruto. Naruto has already demonstrated whose side he's on. He risked his life to save Republic forces on Felucia multiple times. True, this is, Master Yoda acknowledged. But caution, still needed it is. Learn more about young Uzumaki's abilities, we must. About his way of using power. I'm an open book, Naruto offered. I'm happy to demonstrate my techniques or explain how chakra works. I've got nothing to hide. The masters exchanged glances, some form of silent communication passing between them. Very well, Master Windu decided. You will remain at the temple as our guest while we determine how best to proceed. Padawan Tano will continue as your liaison, and Master Kenobi will oversee your orientation. A training assessment, perhaps, Obi-Wan suggested. Tomorrow morning in the South Courtyard. Hat would give us a practical demonstration of your abilities in a controlled setting. Naruto nodded. It was a reasonable request, and frankly, he was curious himself about how his techniques would translate in this world. Until then, Master Windu concluded, quarters will be prepared for you. This meeting of the council is adjourned." As the masters rose and began to disperse, Ahsoka stepped forward. "If it's acceptable, I'll show Naruto to the guest quarters and help him get settled." "Of course, Padawan," Obi-Wan agreed with a slight smile. "And perhaps arrange for some appropriate attire. While functional, his current clothing is rather distinctive." Naruto glanced down at his orange and black outfit, suddenly self-conscious among the muted Jedi robes. "What's wrong with orange?" he muttered as they exited the chamber. "Nothing," Ahsoka assured him with a small smile once they were in the turbolift. "But you do stand out. Not necessarily a bad thing." "How'd that go?" Naruto asked more seriously. "The council meeting. I can't read them at all." Ahsoka considered before answering. "Better than I expected, honestly. The fact that Master Yoda and the others could say Kurama's true nature, that he's not malevolent, helps your case significantly. But they're still cautious. Because of the war, partly." The turbolift doors opened onto a different level, and He led him down a corridor lined with potted plants. "The Jedi have been fighting Sith influence for thousands of years. Anyone with unusual power naturally raises concerns. These Sith, they're the ones using the dark side, right?" "Yes. Currently, Count Dooku leads the Separatist forces, but he answers to a Sith Lord we know only as Darth Sidious." Her expression darkened. "We believe Sidious has infiltrated the Republic somehow. But we haven't been able to identify him." They arrived at a simple door that slid open at Ahsoka's approach. Beyond lay modest quarters, a sleeping area, refresher unit, and small sitting space with a view of Coruscant's endless cityscape. "It's not luxurious," Ahsoka apologized, "but it should be comfortable." "It's perfect," Naruto assured her, genuinely impressed with amenities that would be considered high-end even in the wealthier districts of Konoha. "So what happens now?" "Now you rest, eat, prepare for tomorrow's assessment." She gestured to a panel near the door. "This controls environmental settings, communications, and food delivery. I've programmed it with basic options that should be familiar to your palate." "No ramen, I bet," Naruto sighed dramatically. "Ramen, noodle soup, the food of the gods." Ahsoka laughed, the first time Naruto had heard her do so unreservedly. The sound transformed her face, erasing the serious command, and revealing the young woman beneath. "I'll see what I can find in the temple archives," she promised. "There are recipes from thousands of worlds. Surely one of them has developed noodle soup." "I appreciate the effort." Naruto sank onto the sleeping platform, suddenly aware of his exhaustion. Dimensional travel, space battles, and Jedi Council meetings, it had been quite a day. "Will I see you tomorrow?" "At this assessment, I'll be there," she confirmed. "Along with others who are curious about your abilities." "No pressure," Naruto muttered. Ahsoka paused at the doorway. "For what it's worth, I think you impressed them. Not many beings could face the full council with such composure, especially after being dropped into an entirely new galaxy." Her words carried genuine admiration, warming Naruto despite his fatigue. "Thanks, Ahsoka, for everything. I'd be completely lost without your help." She smiled, the white facial markings crinkling slightly. "Get some rest, Naruto. Tomorrow will be interesting." After she departed, Naruto explored his temporary quarters, marveling at technology that functioned like magic to his eyes. The refresher particularly amazed water appearing at perfect temperature with the touch of a button, sonic cleaning options that removed dirt without moisture, and atmospheric controls that could simulate any environment from desert dry to rainforest humid. "These people have mastered physical comforts," Kurama observed, yet they seem conflicted about their own emotions. "Curious. Yeah, this whole no attachment philosophy seems weird to me." Naruto agreed, testing the sleeping platform's firmness. "How can you protect people without caring about them? Perhaps that is why they struggle with the darkness they fear. By denying natural feelings, they create internal conflict that festers." "Pretty philosophical for a giant fox demon," Naruto teased. "I am thousands of years old, Kit. I've observed many human follies." Naruto drifted to sleep pondering these contradictions, his dreams a confused jumble of Konoha's forests and Coruscant's endless cityscape. Morning brought new clothing, simple tea, and in brown garments resembling Jedi attire but without the traditional outer robe, and a meal of unfamiliar but pleasantly spiced proteins and grains. After eating, Naruto spent an hour meditating, entering himself and taking stock of his chakra reserves. To his relief, he found them fully replenished, with Kurama's energy a familiar warm presence beneath his own. Ahsoka arrived precisely on schedule, her expression betraying excitement beneath professional composure. "Ready for your debut?" she asked as they walked toward the training grounds. "As I'll ever be," Naruto shrugged. "Who's going to be watching?" "Master Kenobi, of course." Master Yoda expressed interest. Various knights and senior Padawans who happened to have training sessions scheduled in the same area. Her tone it clear what she thought of that coincidence. "Great. A full audience. Don't be nervous," she advised. "Just show them what you showed me on Felucia." That was impressive enough. They emerged into a large courtyard ringed by stone columns. The space was clearly designed for training, with various obstacles and training dummies positioned around its perimeter. Despite the early hour, at St. 30 Jedi of various ranks had gathered, attempting to look casually occupied with their own exercises while stealing glances at Naruto. Obi-Wan Kenobi stood at the center of the yard, conversing with another Jedi, a tall human with wavy brown hair and a scar over his right eye. As Naruto and Ahsoka approached, both men turned. "Good morning," Obi-Wan greeted them. "Naruto, I'd like you to meet Anakin Skywalker, Knight of the Order and Ahsoka's former master." "Nice to meet you." Naruto extended his hand, which Anakin clasped firmly. "Likewise." Ahsoka's report mentioned some impressive abilities. "I'm curious to see them firsthand." Something in Anakin's tone caught Naruto's attention, a hint of challenge beneath the politeness. This was a man used to being the most powerful person in any room, Naruto realized. He recognized the trait because he'd seen it in Sasuke for years. "I'll do my best," Naruto replied mildly. "Though I'm still figuring out how chakra translates to your force." "The purpose of today's session," Obi-Wan explained, "is exactly that, to understand the similarities and differences between your abilities and ours. We'll start with basic exercises and progress from there." What followed was essentially a high-level shinobi exam, with Jedi parameters. Naruto demonstrated basic chakra control, walking up vertical surfaces, water walking in a decorative pool, and precise manipulation of small objects. The observing Jedi seemed impressed but not overwhelmed. These were abilities many of them possessed through different applications of the Force. The real interest began when Naruto demonstrated his shadow clones. At Obi-Wan's request, he created 10 perfect duplicates, each fully solid and capable of independent action. This elicited genuine surprise, particularly when Naruto explained that any knowledge or experience gained by the clones transferred back to him upon their dispersion. "Remarkable," Obi-Wan mused, examining one clone closely. "Force projections can create illusions, but not physical duplicates with independent consciousness. The strategic applications alone, it's a forbidden technique where I come from," Naruto explained. "Creating even one shadow clone divides your chakra in half. Most people can't create more than a few without risking chakra exhaustion. Yet you produced 10 without apparent effort," Anakin observed. His interest clearly piqued. "What's your limit?" Naruto exchanged glances with Ahsoka, who gave a small nod of encouragement. "Honestly, thousands, if I needed to." A murmur ran through the observing Jedi. Even Obi-Wan couldn't hide his surprise. "Thousands. That's impossible," Anakin finished. "It's because of my unusually large chakra reserves," Naruto explained, deliberately not mentioning Kurama. The council knew about the 9 tails, but he saw no need to broadcast that information to everyone present. "And years of specialized training. Perhaps a demonstration of your offensive capabilities," Obi-Wan suggested, gesturing toward a set of reinforced training dummies. Naruto nodded, dismissing his shadow clones and approaching the targets. With practiced ease, he formed a standard Rasengan in his right hand, spiraling chakra condensed into a sphere of pure power. The technique cast blue-white light across his features as he drove it into the nearest dummy. The result was spectacular. The dummy didn't merely break, it disintegrated, particles spiraling outward in the same rotational pattern as the Rasengan itself. The reinforced material designed to withstand lightsaber training offered no more resistance than tissue paper. Complete silence fell over the courtyard. Even Obi-Wan seemed momentarily at a loss for words. Anakin was the first to recover. That was impressive, he admitted, genuine respect entering his voice. What do you call that technique? Rasengan, Naruto replied. My father invented it. It's pure chakra manipulation without any elemental nature, just rotation, power, and containment. Could you demonstrate an elemental technique as well? Obi-Wan requested, having regained his composure. Padawan Tano mentioned something about wind manipulation. Naruto nodded, forming the hand signs for a wind-style jutsu. Wind release. Vacuum bullets. He expelled several compressed air projectiles that cut through another training dummy with surgical precision, leaving perfect circular holes. Fascinating, came a new voice from the edge of the training ground. The force doesn't typically manifest in elemental forms like that, except in rare individuals. Naruto turned to see a Myrmidon woman perhaps a few years older than himself, with olive skin and geometric diamond tattoos on her face. She wore the traditional Jedi robes. Her expression one of scholarly interest rather than the suspicion he had encountered from some. Barris, Ahsoka acknowledged with a small nod. There was a hint of tension between them that Naruto immediately noticed. Padawan Afi, Obi-Wan greeted her. I wasn't aware you were observing. Master unduly suggested I might learn something from today's demonstration, Barris replied, her eyes still studying Naruto with intense interest. The medical corps has long studied force energies, but this, chakra, operates on principles that might expand our understanding. I'm not much of a teacher, Naruto admitted, but I'm happy to explain what I can. The assessment continued, with Naruto demonstrating increasingly complex techniques while Obi-Wan and occasionally Anakin attempted to find force equivalents. Some translated easily. Chakra-enhanced strength was similar to force-augmented abilities, while sensory techniques paralleled force perception. Others, particularly shadow clones and Rasengan variants, had no clear analogues. Throughout the demonstration, Naruto was aware of Barris Afi watching intently from the sidelines, occasionally making notes on a datapad. Unlike the other observers, her interest seemed more academic than martial, focused on understanding the principles rather than their applications. I believe we've seen enough for one session, Obi-Wan finally declared. Naruto, thank you for your openness. This has been most educational. The crowd began to disperse, though many lingered, discussing what they had witnessed in hushed, excited tones. Anakin approached Naruto directly, his initial skepticism replaced by genuine curiosity. Your fighting style is unlike anything in our records, he said. Would you be interested in a sparring match sometime? No chakra or force powers, just physical techniques. Sure, Naruto agreed, recognizing the offer as the respect it represented. I'd like that. As Anakin moved away to speak with Obi-Wan, Barris approached. Her steps measured and precise. Your control is exceptional, she observed. Particularly the balance between physical and spiritual energies. In our tradition, those are often treated as separate paths. Quote, where I come from, that balance is the foundation of all techniques, Naruto explained. You can't perform ninjutsu without harmonizing both aspects. Fascinating. Barris seemed about to ask another question when alarms suddenly blared throughout the temple complex, harsh and urgent. Obi-Wan's comm unit activated immediately. Kenobi here. What's happening? Security breach in the southern youngling dormitory, came the tense reply. Intruders have taken hostages. Council members requested immediately. The atmosphere transformed instantly. Traces of academic interest vanished as the Jedi present moved with purposeful urgency toward the source of the alarm. Obi-Wan and Anakin were already running, lightsabers in hand though not yet activated. Younglings, Ahsoka explained tersely to Naruto as they followed. Children, the most vulnerable members of the Order. No further explanation was needed. Naruto matched her pace, adrenaline surging. Any idea who would attack children in the middle of the Jedi Temple? Seems suicidal. That's what worries me, she replied grimly. Either they're desperate or they have an escape plan that makes them confident. They arrived at the youngling quarters to find a scene of controlled chaos. Temple guards in their distinctive masks had established a perimeter, while Masters Windu and Nobi conferred urgently near the sealed entrance. Various knights and Padawans stood ready, lightsabers humming with barely contained energy. What's the situation? Anakin demanded as they joined the group. 6 intruders. Windu reported tersely. Heavily armed, using Mandalorian tactics but not wearing traditional armor. They've barricaded themselves in the main dormitory with 16 younglings as hostages. They're demanding a council member as additional leverage, plus a secure shuttle-off world. Separatist agents, Ahsoka suggested. Possibly. Obi-Wan stroked his beard thoughtfully. Though this bears the hallmarks of a mercenary operation. The question is, who hired them? We can figure that out after we save the younglings, Anakin said impatiently. What's the plan? Master Windu's expression was grim. We can't risk a frontal assault. The dormitory has limited access points, all of which they're monitoring. They've threatened to execute hostages if they detect any force use within 20 meters. They must have force-sensitive detection equipment, Barris observed, having joined the group. Rare technology, typically used by bounty hunters who specialize in tracking Jedi. Naruto listened to the discussion, mentally mapping what he had learned of the temple's layout. An idea began forming, one that utilized his unique abilities. What about someone who doesn't use the Force? He suggested. All eyes turned to him. I mean, Naruto continued, they're watching for Force techniques, right? But my chakra signature is different. They might not detect it the same way. A valid point, Obi-Wan acknowledged. But how would you approach? The physical barriers remain, and they have surveillance on all entrances. Naruto grinned. I don't always need doors. He formed a familiar hand sign. Shadow clone jutsu. A single clone appeared beside him with a puff of smoke. Transform, the clone said, immediately changing appearance to match a small maw. Intonance droid Naruto had noticed in the temple corridors. My clone can transform its appearance, Naruto explained. It can scout ahead without raising suspicion. Meanwhile, I have another idea for getting inside undetected. Master Windu studied him intently. This is an extremely sensitive situation, Uzumaki. These are our youngest and most vulnerable. I understand, Naruto replied, his expression serious. Where I come from, I've protected my village through many crises. I would never risk children's lives unnecessarily. After a moment of consideration, Windu nodded. Very well, coordinate with Kenobi and Skywalker. But understand, if this goes wrong, the consequences will be severe. It won't go wrong, Naruto assured him with quiet confidence. That's my ninja way. While his transformed clone scooted away in its maintenance droid disguise, Naruto huddled with Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka to outline his plan. Barris joined them, offering insights into the dormitory's layout. Having spent time there teaching basic healing techniques to younglings. The ventilation system is insufficient for a person your size, she pointed out on the holographic blueprint, and I'll certainly be monitoring it regardless. I don't need the ventilation system, Naruto replied. Just information about their positions and the younglings' status. 10 minutes later, his disguised clone dispersed itself, flooding Naruto with critical intelligence. 6 intruders positioned strategically throughout the dormitory, 16 younglings gathered in the central common area, sitting in a circle surrounded by laser tripwires. The intruders were professional, coordinated, and armed with weapons specifically designed to counter lightsabers. They know what they're doing, Naruto reported. But they're not watching the ceiling as carefully as the walls and floor. And their force sensors are directional, pointing outward to detect approaching Jedi. Still, how will you enter? Obi-Wan pressed. Even if we created a distraction, they would execute hostages the moment they detected any attempt at infiltration. Naruto formed another hand sign. Earth style. Hiding like a mole technique. To the amazement of the watching Jedi, Naruto's body seemed to meld with the floor itself, disappearing beneath the solid surface without disturbing it. He can move through solid matter. Anakin exclaimed. Not exactly, Ahsoka explained, having witnessed similar techniques on Felucia. He's manipulating the earth element to move through it. But I didn't realize he could use it processed materials like temple flooring. The composition is still primarily stone and minerals, Barris observed. Fascinating adaptation. Beneath the temple floors, Naruto moved with practiced efficiency, his chakra guiding him through the unfamiliar material. He navigated based on the mental map provided by his clone, carefully approaching the dormitory from below. The technique required intense concentration. One misstep and he could materialize inside solid matter with fatal consequences. 6 hostiles, Kurama reminded him. All armed with advanced weapons. You'll need to neutralize them simultaneously to prevent younglings from being harmed. I know, Naruto replied mentally. Shadow clones from below, coordinated strike. He paused directly beneath the dormitory common area. Extending his senses upward, he could feel the vibrations of movement, heavier footsteps from the intruders, lighter ones from the occasional shifting of the younglings. With careful precision, he created 6 shadow clones within the earth alongside him, each assigned to emerge beneath a specific target. On my mark, he whispered to his clones. 3, 2, 1, now. In perfect synchronization, Naruto and his 6 clones erupted from the floor of the dormitory, each directly beneath an intruder. The attackers, focused on external threats, had no warning before Naruto's clones seized them from below, dragging them partially into the floor and immobilizing them in a single fluid motion. The younglings gasped collectively, their eyes wide with astonishment as their captors suddenly found themselves trapped, with only their heads, shoulders, and arms above the floor's surface. Before any could trigger dead man switches or remote detonators, Naruto's clones had disabled their equipment and secured their weapons. What the? One intruder began, before a clone's precision strike rendered him unconscious. Everyone okay? The real Naruto asked, emerging fully from the floor to stand among the stunned younglings. They stared at him with a mixture of fear and wonder, small faces of various species, none older than perhaps 10 standard years. A tiny Rhodian was the first to speak. Are you a new kind of Jedi? He asked in accented basic. Not exactly, Naruto smiled, crouching to their level. Just a friend who happens to be passing through. Let's get those laser tripwires shut down, shall we? As his clones secured the intruders and deactivated their equipment, Naruto gently reassured the younglings. Years of working with Iruka-sensei and later mentoring Anahamaru had given him a natural ease with children. The bad guys came during morning meditation, a human girl with braided hair explained. Master Tsunube tried to protect us, but they had special weapons that blocked his lightsaber. Is Master Tsunube okay? Naruto asked, concerned about the absent instructor. They locked him in the supply room, a Twi'lek youngling pointed. He was stunned but alive. One of Naruto's clones immediately moved to free the elderly Jedi Master, while another signaled the all-clear to the forces waiting outside. The doors slid open to reveal Master Windu leading a contingent of Jedi. Lightsabers at the ready, they froze at the unexpected scene. 6 intruders embedded in the floor, neutralized completely, with Naruto calmly sitting among the younglings, apparently in the middle of telling them a story about a prank involving the Hokage monument. Situation secure, Masters, Naruto reported with a slightly cheeky grin. No injuries to report among the younglings, though Master Tsunube could use some medical attention. The next hours passed in a blur of debriefings and medical checks. The intruders were identified as elite mercenaries hired by an unknown third party, likely separatist aligned, but with sophisticated equipment suggesting deeper resources. Master Tsunube recovered quickly, though he expressed chagrin at having been caught off guard by anti-Jedi weaponry. Throughout it all, Naruto found himself the subject of intense interest, not suspicion as before, but genuine appreciation and curiosity. The younglings, in particular, had adopted him as an instant hero, peppering him with questions about his earth swimming technique and begging for demonstrations of his transformation abilities. By evening, he found himself in one of the temple's meditation gardens, enjoying a rare moment of solitude. The events of the day had been exhausting, yet exhilarating. For the first time since arriving in this strange galaxy, he had felt truly useful, applying his abilities to protect others, just as he had always done in Konoha. There you are, Ahsoka's voice interrupted his thoughts. She approached along the garden path, accompanied by Barriss Offee. The younglings are still talking about their rescue by the Orange Ninja Jedi. I think you've made some lifelong admirers. Naruto chuckled, slightly embarrassed by the attention. I just did what needed doing. Any of you would have done the same if you could. Perhaps, Barriss said thoughtfully, but your methods were uniquely effective. You neutralized the threat, without a single casualty on either side. Most impressive. The council is impressed too, Ahsoka added, sitting beside him on the stone bench. Master Yoda specifically commented on your restraint. You could have killed those mercenaries easily, but you chose to capture them instead. Killing is always the last option, Naruto shrugged. That's something my teachers drilled into me. Especially, why when there might be intelligence to gather? Barris seated herself on his other side, her posture perfect yet somehow tense. Your philosophy sounds more aligned with traditional Jedi teachings than our current practices, she observed. This war has pushed many of us toward more expedient solutions. Something in her tone caught Naruto's attention, a hint of disillusionment beneath the measured words. He studied her more carefully, recognizing the carefully controlled passion of someone wrestling with deep internal conflicts. War changes people, he acknowledged. Sometimes for the better, often for worse. The trick is remembering what you're fighting for in the first place. And what were you fighting for, in your world? Barris asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. Naruto gazed up at Coruscant's evening sky, where the first stars were becoming visible through the city planet's ever-present haze. At first, recognition, acknowledgement. I wanted people to see me, not the monster they thought I contained. He smiled ruefully. Then I wanted to protect my friends, my village. Later, I realized it was bigger. I wanted to break the cycle of hatred that kept creating new conflicts, new pain. An ambitious goal, Ahsoka commented, though her tone held respect rather than criticism. Maybe impossible, Naruto admitted, but worth striving for anyway. Barris's expression had grown increasingly thoughtful. The Jedi were peacekeepers once, she said softly. Before the war, now we lead armies, plan military campaigns, celebrate victories measured in enemy casualties. Barris, Ahsoka began, a warning note in her voice. It's all right, Naruto interjected. I understand what she means. In my world, shinobi were originally assassins and mercenaries. Villages were created to give a structure, purpose beyond killing. But old habits are hard to break, and wars kept happening anyway. How did you maintain your perspective? Barris asked carefully. Your moral center. When violence surrounded you, Naruto considered the question seriously. I had good teachers, friends who believed in me. And I guess I'm just stubborn enough to keep believing things can get better. Even when evidence suggests otherwise. He grinned. Being hard-headed has its advantages. This drew a small smile from Barris, the first he had seen from the serious young woman. It transformed her features, hinting at the person beneath the composed Jedi exterior. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a temple guard, his mask impassive as he addressed them. Padawan Tano, Padawan Afi. Master Kenobi requests your presence in the council chamber. Naruto Uzumaki is also summoned. The three exchanged glances before rising to follow the guard. As they walked through the temple's evening quiet corridors, Naruto sensed a change in how others regarded him. Respectful nods from knights who had previously watched him with suspicion, genuinely grateful smiles from masters who had been present during the hostage rescue. The council chamber was only partially occupied this time. Masters Yoda, Windu, and Kenobi physically present, with holograms of two others Naruto didn't recognize. Naruto Uzumaki, Master Windu began without preamble. The council has reviewed your actions during today's crisis. Your intervention saved 16 younglings and captured valuable intelligence assets without bloodshed. I just did what I could, Naruto replied modestly. More than that, you did, Master Yoda countered. Wisdom you showed, and restraint. Qualities of a true guardian. The council has reached a decision regarding your status, Obi-Wan continued. While your origin remains mysterious, your character and abilities have been demonstrated clearly. We would like to formally offer you a position as a special consultant to the Jedi Order for the duration of your stay in our galaxy. Naruto blinked in surprise. A consultant? What exactly would that involve? You would assist in missions where your unique abilities could prove valuable, Master Windu explained. Train with our knights to better understand the intersection of chakra and the Force. Share knowledge that might help us in our current conflict. Under Padawan Tano's continued guidance, Obi-Wan added with a small smile in Ahsoka's direction. And with access to our archives to research possible ways to return you to your home world, should you wish it. The offer was generous, far more than Naruto had expected. It gave him purpose in this unfamiliar world, along with resources and allies. Yet something held him back from immediate acceptance. "I'm grateful for the offer," he said carefully. "And I'm happy to help however I can. But I need to understand what I'd be getting involved in. This war, I know the basics, but not the details. Before I commit to any side, I need to form my own opinions." Rather than offense, his response seemed to earn approving nods from several masters. "A wise precaution," Master Windu acknowledged. "Padawan Tano can provide historical context and current intelligence briefings at an appropriate security level. Seek truth. You should," Master Yoda encouraged. "Questions, you must ask. Better allies we shall be, if understanding flows both ways." "Then I accept," Naruto decided. "At least provisionally, while I learn more." "Excellent," Obi-Wan concluded. "Arrangements will be made for more permanent quarters, access credentials, and appropriate equipment. Padawan Afi has volunteered to assist with your medical evaluation and baseline assessments." Given her expertise in healing techniques, Naruto glanced at Barris, who inclined her head slightly. There was something in her expression, a quiet intensity. She suggested her interest went beyond professional curiosity. "One more matter," Master Windu added. "Initial analysis of the captured mercenaries suggests this was not a random attack. They were specifically targeting Force-sensitive children, with equipment designed to neutralize Jedi defenses. This indicates planning and resources beyond typical separatist operations." "You think someone specifically wants Jedi younglings?" Ahsoka asked, her tone sharpening. "Unclear. It is," Master Yoda replied gravely. "But vigilant, we must be. A new threat, this may represent. All the more reason to welcome Naruto's assistance." Obi-Wan concluded. His techniques clearly caught these assailants completely by surprise. That tactical advantage may prove invaluable if similar attacks occur. The meeting concluded shortly thereafter, with arrangements made for Naruto to begin formal briefings the following day. As they exited the council chamber, Ahsoka's communicator chimed with an incoming message. "It's from Anakin," she reported after checking it. "He's been assigned to investigate the mercenaries' origins. He wants to know if you'd be interested in joining the interrogation." "Naruto." "Me, why?" "Because you captured them," Barris explained. "They underestimated you once. Seeing you again might unsettle them." Psychological warfare, Naruto realized. "Sure, I'm in, though I'm not much for interrogation techniques." "Don't worry," Ahsoka assured him with a slightly wolfish smile. "Anakin has that part covered. He can be very persuasive." They parted ways at the residential level, with plans to meet the following morning. Naruto's new quarters were significantly larger than the visitor accommodations, a proper apartment with dedicated spaces for sleeping, meditation, and everyday living. Someone had even arranged for additional clothing in his size, though he noted with amusement that none featured his signature orange. As he settled onto the meditation ion near the window overlooking Coruscant's never-ending stream of traffic, Naruto reflected on the rapid changes in his circumstances. In less than a week, he had gone from a confused visitor to an official ally of the Jedi Order. Trusted enough to participate in sensitive operations. "You always did have a gift for making allies," Kurama observed, his presence warm in Naruto's mindscape. "Though I notice you didn't fully commit to their cause. I need to understand more before I jump in completely," Naruto replied mentally. "This conflict seems complicated. And there's something about the Jedi that feels contradictory. They preach peace but lead armies. They talk about compassion but forbid attachment. Not unlike the contradictions of shinobi villages," the fox pointed out. "Preaching cooperation while maintaining separate military powers. The forms differ, but human nature remains consistent across worlds, it seems." "There's Barris, too," Naruto added. "Something's bothering her deeply. I can sense her struggling with doubts about the Order, the war, everything." "The quiet ones often harbor the deepest turmoil," Kurama replied. "Be watchful, but not suspicious. She may prove either a valuable ally or a dangerous opponent, depending on how her internal conflicts resolve." Naruto nodded absently, his gaze tracking a particularly elegant spacecraft as it wove through Coruscant's aerial lanes. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new information about this conflict he'd been dropped into. For now, though, he had achieved something important. He had begun to establish himself in this strange new world, to form connections and earn trust. It wasn't Konoha. It wasn't home. But it was a start. The following days established a rhythm to Naruto's new existence. Mornings typically began with physical training alongside various Jedi Knights and Padawans, where his taijutsu skills earned grudging respect even from the most skeptical. Without chakra enhancement, he still proved a formidable opponent, his unorthodox style catching many Jedi off guard. Middays were devoted to historical briefings and cultural orientation, crash courses in galactic politics, Jedi-Sith history, and the current state of the Clone Wars. Ahsoka proved an excellent teacher, supplementing dry historical facts with personal experiences and perspectives. That gave Naruto a more nuanced understanding. So the Republic represents democracy and freedom, while the Separatists want independence from Republic control, Naruto summarized during one session. But both sides have legitimate grievances, and both have committed questionable acts during the war. That's a fair assessment, Ahsoka acknowledged. Though it's important to understand that he separatist leadership, particularly Count Dooku, has Sith allegiances. Whatever legitimate concerns existed at the beginning have been corrupted to serve the Sith agenda. Which is what, exactly? Ultimately, the destruction of the Jedi Order and domination of the galaxy. She frowned. Though their specific plans remain unclear. We know Dooku serves a master, Darth Sidious, but his identity and exact goals are shrouded in secrecy. Afternoons typically involved practical sessions where Naruto demonstrated chakra techniques while Jedi counterparts attempted force equivalents. These exercises fascinated observers from both sides, revealing fundamental similarities and significant differences between the two energy systems. Barriss Offee became a regular participant in these sessions. Her interest particularly focused on healing applications. Under Master Che's supervision in the halls of healing, she and Naruto explored how chakra healing compared to force healing techniques. Your method seems more direct, Barriss observed after watching Naruto heal a minor training injury on a young Padawan. You infuse your energy directly into the damaged tissue to accelerate natural healing processes. That's basically it, Naruto confirmed. Though specialized medical nin like Sakura, a friend from my world, have much more precise control than I do. I'm better at large-scale healing using Kurama's chakra. The Jedi approach relies more on connecting with the living force, encouraging the body's natural energy to restore balance, Barriss explained, demonstrating on another patient. Less direct manipulation, more facilitation. These technical discussions inevitably led to deeper philosophical conversations. During one such exchange in a quiet corner of the temple gardens, Barriss finally voiced the doubts Naruto had sensed simmering beneath her composed exterior. Do you ever question your purpose? She asked abruptly, her eyes fixed on a small fountain where water cycled endlessly through an ancient stone sculpture. The role assigned to you by circumstances and others' expectations. Naruto considered the question carefully. All the time, he admitted. For years, I was the village pariah, feared and hated for containing the 9 tails. Then I became the hero, the savior, carrying everyone's hopes and expectations. Neither role fully defined me. How did you resolve the contradiction? By defining myself, Naruto replied simply. I decided who I wanted to be, what I stood for, independent of others' perceptions. It wasn't easy, and I made plenty of mistakes along the way. But ultimately, that inner certainty became my strength. Barriss was silent for a long moment. The Jedi Code teaches detachment from desire, from passion, from the very things that make us sentient. Yet we're expected to care enough about the Republic to die for it. Her voice carried carefully controlled emotion. I joined the Order to heal, to bring peace. Now I lead troops into battle, plan military campaigns, count victory in enemy casualties. Have you spoken about these feelings with your master, or other Jedi? To question is to invite suspicion, she replied softly. Especially now, when unity is paramount against the separatist threat. A bitter note entered her voice. We speak of balance, yet deny the darkness within ourselves. We claim to serve life, yet deal in death daily. Naruto recognized the dangerous edge in her words, the same spiral of disillusionment that had led many shinobi down destructive paths. Yet there was genuine pain behind her critique. Legitimate questions that deserved consideration rather than dismissal. Where I come from, he said carefully, We have a saying, to know oneself is the beginning of wisdom. Acknowledging your doubts doesn't make you disloyal, it makes you honest. The question is what you do with those doubts. And what would you do, Naruto Uzumaki, if you found the institution you served had strayed from its founding principles? If the very cause you fought for had become corrupted? The question hung between them, weighted with implications Naruto couldn't fully decipher. Before he could formulate a response, Ahsoka appeared at the garden in trance, her expression urgent. "There you are," she called. "The council has called an emergency session. We're needed immediately." The atmosphere in the council chamber was tense when they arrived. Most seats were occupied, with the absent masters attending via hologram. Anakin Skywalker stood at the center, his expression grim as he delivered a report. "The interrogation of the captured mercenaries has yielded disturbing information," he was saying as they entered. "They were hired through multiple cutouts, but we've traced the ultimate source to Zygeria." Murmurs rippled through the assembled masters. Naruto glanced questioningly at Ahsoka. "Slavers," she whispered in explanation. "The Zygerian Empire was once a major slave trading power before the Republic outlawed the practice. They've recently allied with the Separatists. What would Slavers want with Jedi younglings?" Master Plo Koon asked, his modulated voice betraying concern despite its mechanical quality. "That's the disturbing part," Anakin continued, his mechanical hand clenching unconsciously. "According to our intelligence, they weren't the primary targets. The younglings were bait." "Bait?" Master Windu leaned forward. "For what?" "For Naruto Uzumaki." All eyes turned toward Naruto, who stiffened in surprise. "Me? But that's impossible. They only been in your galaxy for a few days. No one even knew I existed before Felucia." "Someone did," Anakin countered grimly. "The mercenaries were given your description, including details of your abilities demonstrated during the Felucia battle. Their primary mission was to capture the younglings to draw you out, then capture you using specialized equipment designed to neutralize your unique energy signature," their words. "Not mine." Shocked silence filled the chamber. Naruto felt a chill run down his spine as implications cascaded through his mind. Someone had been watching on Felucia. Someone powerful enough to quickly assemble a specialized team and equipment based on a single observation of his abilities. "Impossible, this seems," Master Yoda broke the silence. "Unless the Sith already knew of Naruto's arrival," Obi-Wan finished the thought. "Possibly even expected it." "That makes no sense," Ahsoka objected. "Naruto's arrival was completely unexpected, a dimensional anomaly. How could anyone predict that?" Barris spoke up, her analytical mind cutting through the confusion. "Unless it wasn't anomalous at all. What if it was engineered? A deliberate summoning or transportation?" The theory hung in the air, both disturbing and plausible. Naruto felt Kurama stir within him, the fox's ancient consciousness focusing on this new threat. "Someone in this world has knowledge of dimensional barriers," the Biju growled. "Knowledge that should not exist here. Be wary, Kit. If the Sith orchestrated Naruto's arrival," Master Windu reasoned, "they must have a specific purpose in mind. Something about his abilities or nature that they wish to exploit." "Kurama," Naruto said aloud, drawing surprised looks. "They might be after Kurama, the Nine Tails. His chakra is immensely powerful. Different from anything in your world. If these Sith are seeking power, a Biju under Sith control," Ahsoka whispered, horror evident in her voice. "That would be catastrophic." "Never gonna happen," Naruto stated flatly. "Kurama and I are partners. No one's separating us or controlling either of us against our will." "Nevertheless," Master Windu concluded, "this development changes your situation significantly, Uzumaki. If the Sith are indeed targeting you, remaining at the temple places everyone here at risk." For a moment, Naruto thought they aimed to send him away, to cut ties with this potential threat. Instead, Obi-Wan offered an unexpected alternative. "I believe the best course of action is to move Naruto to active field operations," he suggested. "A stationary target is more vulnerable. If he is mobile, working with our forces on various fronts, he becomes more difficult to track and capture." "Agreed," Anakin nodded. "Plus, his abilities would be invaluable in several ongoing operations." Master Yoda contemplated silently before speaking. "A shadow team, perhaps. Small, mobile, adaptable. Padawan Tano, continue as liaison you should. Padawan Afi, your medical expertise, valuable it would be. Knight Skywalker, operational command you shall have, when your other duties permit. A specialized strike team, Master Windu summarized. Operating with Jedi Council authority but maximum operational flexibility. Your primary mission will be to investigate the connection between the Sith and Naruto's arrival, while simultaneously supporting critical Republic operations. The decision was swiftly formalized. Within hours, preparations were underway for their first mission, investigating a suspected separatist research facility in the mid-rim where unusual energy signatures had been detected. The facility's parameters matched theoretical models for dimensional manipulation technology, making it a logical starting point. As they prepared to depart, Naruto found himself in the temple hangar bay, watching Ahsoka and clone troopers load equipment onto their assigned vessel, a modified Republic cruiser designed for extended covert operations. The past hours had been a whirlwind of briefings, equipment requisitions, and hasty goodbyes to the temple personnel he'd come to know. Processing everything all right, Anakin approached, having completed pre-flight checks on his personal starfighter that would escort their larger vessel. Still trying to wrap my head around it, Naruto admitted. The idea that someone pulled me into this universe deliberately, it changes everything. It gives us a target, Anakin corrected, a hardness entering his voice. Someone responsible, someone who can send you home, if that's what you want. The unspoken question hung between them. Did Naruto want to return to his world? A week ago, the answer would have been an unequivocal yes. Now, he wasn't so certain. One step at a time, Naruto replied. First, we find out who's behind this and why. Good plan. Anakin clasped his shoulder briefly before moving toward his fighter. We launch in 30 minutes. Be ready. Left alone with his thoughts, Naruto gazed out through the hangar's atmospheric shield at Coruscant's endless cityscape. In a matter of days, he had gained allies, potential enemies, and a missio. And that might determine not just his fate but the balance of power in this galaxy. We've faced worse odds, Kurama reminded him. Madara, Kagaya, Pain, all seemingly insurmountable opponents. True, Naruto acknowledged, but we knew what we were fighting for then. Here, everything's still so new, so uncertain. Then establish certainty, the Fox advised. Decide what matters to you in this world, independent of the Jedi, the Sith, or anyone else's agenda. Find your own way, as you always have. Naruto nodded, drawing comfort from the familiar wisdom. Whatever mysteries awaited, whatever forces had brought him to this distant galaxy, he would face them on his own terms. Not as a pawn in someone else's game, but as Naruto Uzumaki, shinobi of the Hidden Leaf, Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails, and now, perhaps, something new entirely. As if sensing his thoughts, Ahsoka approached from the cruiser's ramp. We're ready when you are, she said, studying his expression. Having second thoughts? Not at all, Naruto replied with renewed conviction. Just getting my head in the game. He grinned, some of his usual confidence returning. So, this is what Jedi field missions are like. Rush into danger, uncover sinister plots, save the galaxy. Ahsoka's answering smile held both amusement and a hint of sadness. More often than I'd like to admit. Though usually without interdimensional travelers along for the ride. Well, I promise to make things interesting, Naruto quipped as they walked toward the waiting ship. Of that, Ahsoka replied dryly, I have absolutely no doubt. Behind them, the Jedi Temple rose against Coruscant's skyline, a symbol of order and tradition in a chaotic galaxy. Ahead lay uncertainty, danger, and the promise of answers to questions. Naruto hadn't even known to ask when he first arrived in this world. Whatever awaited, he was no longer alone facing it. For a shinobi who had built his strength on bonds with others, that made all the difference. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Shadows of Deception. Space stretched around their vessel in infinite darkness, punctuated by distant stars and the occasional shimmer of cosmic dust. The Republic cruiser Luminara cut through the void with military efficiency, its modified silhouette disguising its true capabilities from casual observers. 4 standard days had passed since their departure from Coruscant, and the initial excitement of the mission had given way to the monotony of hyperspace travel. Naruto sat cross-legged in the ship's small meditation chamber, eyes closed as he attempted to center himself. Around him, small objects, training remotes, styluses, and even a few ration bars, floated in gentle orbits, suspended not by the force but by carefully controlled streams of chakra. "That's not telekinesis," came Barris Offie's soft voice from the doorway. "You're extending chakra threads, aren't you?" Without opening his eyes, Naruto smiled slightly. "Something like that. Not as refined as your force techniques, but effective enough. May I observe?" "Sure." The Mirielon healer entered silently, settling onto a cushion opposite him. Unlike their previous encounters in the temple, Barris had discarded her traditional headdress for this mission, revealing short black hair that framed her tattooed face. The change humanized her, making the geometric NDS on her olive skin seem less like formal markings and more like personal expression. "Your energy flow is fascinating," she commented after several minutes of silent observation. "So different from the Force, yet complementary somehow. More structured, less intuitive." Naruto opened his eyes, allowing the floating objects to settle gently to the floor. "Chakra requires specific pathways and control mechanisms, hand signs, mostly. The Force seems more flexible." "Yes and no," Barris demonstrated by lifting one of the training remotes with a slight gesture. "The Force flows through all living things, connecting them. We don't direct it so much as persuade it. Yet you can use it to move objects, read minds, even heal injuries," Naruto pointed out. "Not so different from chakra applications. The applications may appear similar, but the philosophy differs fundamentally." She paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. "The Jedi approach focuses on harmony with the natural flow of the Force. Your chakra techniques impose will directly upon energy." There it was again, that subtle undercurrent in her voice. Not quite disapproval, but a persistent questioning that Naruto had noticed in many of their conversations. "You think that's wrong?" he asked, genuinely curious rather than defensive. Barris shook her head, the motion slightly stiff. "Not wrong. Just different. The Jedi teachings warn against dominating the Force, bending it unnaturally to one's will. That path leads to the dark side. In my world, chakra is a tool, morally neutral. It's the intent that matters." Naruto gestured to the objects he'd been manipulating. "Same technique can save a life or end one. A dangerous perspective by Jedi standards," she noted, though her tone suggested it wasn't necessarily disagreeable to her personally. Their philosophical discussion was interrupted by Ahsoka's voice over the ship's intercom. "We're approaching the Pantora system. All personnel to the command deck for final briefing." Quote, "The command deck buzzed with activity as clone troopers, a dozen specialists assigned to their mission, prepared for arrival." Captain Rex stood beside a holographic display showing the Pantora system, his weathered face serious as he discussed tactical approaches with Ahsoka. "Ah, good, you're here," Ahsoka nodded as Naruto and Barris entered. "We've received updated intelligence from Pantoran security forces. The situation has deteriorated since our mission was authorized." The hologram shifted to display Pantora itself, a moon of the gas giant Ordo Plutonia. Its surface predominantly covered by tundra and ice fields with scattered urban centers glowing like embers against the frozen landscape. 3 terrorist attacks in major cities within the past week, Rex elaborated, highlighting explosions on the display, all targeting civilian infrastructure. 27 confirmed casualties, over 100 injured. "Any organization claiming responsibility?" Barris inquired. "That's where it gets complicated," Ahsoka replied. "A group calling themselves Pantora First has taken credit, demanding the planet's withdrawal from the Republican DA policy of armed neutrality in the Clone Wars. Separatist influence," Commander Cody, another veteran clone, stated with certainty. "Similar pattern to agitation campaigns on Onderon and Ryloth." Naruto studied the holographic display, absorbing the unfamiliar geography and political dynamics. "So our mission is to, what? Stop the terrorists, investigate separatist involvement, both, and more," Ahsoka explained. Senator Ryo Chuchi specifically requested Jedi assistance. She believes these attacks are being orchestrated to destabilize Pantora's government ahead of a crucial vote. An expanded Republic military presence in the system. "The senator is a vocal supporter of the Republic," Barris added. She's received numerous death threats from extremist factions. Which is why her security will be our first priority upon arrival, Ahsoka concluded. We'll be greeted as a cultural delegation to avoid drawing attention. Senator Chuchi will meet us at the Pantoran Assembly to establish official cover for our investigation. As the briefing continued, Naruto found himself impressed by the layers of complexity in this mission. Unlike the straightforward combat operations he'd experienced on Felucia or the hostage situation in the Jedi Temple, this required subtlety, political awareness, and investigative skills. He wondered briefly if this was what Anbu missions in Konoha had been like, operating in shadows, uncovering plots that threatened from within. Naruto, Ahsoka addressed him directly, your abilities present both opportunities and challenges for this mission. The Separatists likely have no intelligence on you, which gives us a tactical advantage. However, your techniques are distinctive. Using them openly could compromise our cover. I understand, he nodded. I can be discreet when needed. Shadow clones for reconnaissance, transformation techniques for infiltration, nothing flashy unless absolutely necessary. Good. She seemed genuinely relieved at his understanding. We're not looking for confrontation here, just evidence of who's really behind these attacks. The ship transitioned smoothly from hyperspace into the Pantora system, its sublight engines engaging as they approached the blue-tinged moon orbiting the massive gas giant. Unlike Coruscant's artificial splendor or Felucia's fungal forests, Pantora's beauty was stark and vast ice sheets reflecting azure light from the system's distant sun, punctuated by mountain ranges and the geometric patterns of developed areas. Their landing approval came from the highest levels of Pantoran government, allowing them to bypass standard security protocols and set down directly at a private hangar adjacent to the assembly building. As the landing ramp descended, Naruto adjusted the formal attire he'd been provided for the mission, a subdued dark blue tunic and trousers that resembled Jedi clothing but lacked the distinctive tabards and obi. The outfit felt constraining compared to his usual gear, but he understood the necessity of blending in. A small welcoming party awaited them on the landing platform, led by a striking young woman whose blue skin and yellow eyes marked her as a native Pantoran. Despite her petite stature, she carried herself with unmistakable authority, her elaborately styled purple hair and formal robes denoting high political status. Intricate 8 yellow markings adorned her face, similar to Barris's tattoos in geometric precision but clearly serving a different cultural purpose. Senator Chuchi, Ahsoka stepped forward with a respectful bow. Thank you for receiving us on such short notice. Padawan Tano, the senator replied warmly, clasping Ahsoka's hands in her own. It's been too long. I only wish we were meeting under better circumstances. Her gaze shifted to the others, lingering with particular curiosity on Naruto. These are your associates. Ahsoka performed introductions smoothly. Padawan Barris Afi, specialized in diplomatic and healing arts. Captain Rex and Commander Cody, leading our security detail. And Naruto Uzumaki, a special consultant to the Jedi Order with unique expertise in unconventional tactics. Consultant. Senator Chuchi's perfectly arched eyebrow raised slightly. I wasn't informed the Jedi had begun employing outside expertise. A recent development, Barris interjected smoothly. The war has required adaptations in many areas. Indeed it has. The senator nodded, accepting the explanation with diplomatic grace while her eyes suggested she recognized there was more to the story. Please, let's continue this conversation inside. Pantoran weather can be inhospitable to off-worlders. As if to emphasize her point, a bitter wind gusted across the landing platform, ying particles of ice that stung exposed skin. The temperature hovered just above freezing, mild by Pantoran standards but uncomfortable for those accustomed to more temperate climates. They followed Senator Chuchi through security checkpoints and into the assembly building proper, an impressive structure of blue-veined ice marble and polished metal, its soaring architecture reminiscent of ancient temples but incorporating modern functionality. Pantoran guards in formal blue and gold uniforms stood at attention at key positions, their expressions professionally neutral but their eyes alert. The assembly is currently in recess, Chuchi explained as they walked through high-ceilinged corridors adorned with historical tapestries and ceremonial weapons, which allows us some privacy to speak freely. My official quarters are secure, swept for surveillance devices hourly. Once inside the senator's private office suite, the formality in her demeanor softened slightly. She dismissed her personal staff with practiced efficiency, activated security protocols that sealed the room from both physical and electronic intrusion, then turned to face her visitors with a mix of relief and concern. "Thank you for coming so quickly," she said with genuine feeling. "The situation here is deteriorating faster than I can convey through official channels." "Your message mentioned terrorist activity," Ahsoka prompted, but suggested there was more beneath the surface. Much more. Chuchi moved to a sophisticated holodable at the center of the room, activating a display showing patterns of incidents across Pantora's surface. These attacks began precisely 3 days after our assembly announced consideration of hosting an expanded Republic military presence. "The timing is suspicious." Quote, "The Separatists wouldn't want an increased Republic foothold so close to their supply routes in this sector," Rex observed, studying the tactical display with professional interest. "Exactly," Chuchi nodded. "But the concerning element isn't just the attacks themselves, it's their precision. They've targeted specific infrastructure nodes that weren't publicly documented. Someone provided the terrorists with classified information." "You suspect infiltration," Barris concluded. "Someone within your government, or within my staff," Chuchi admitted grimly. "Which is why I've been careful about what information reaches Coruscant. I don't know who I can trust." Naruto, who had been quietly observing, chose this moment to speak. "Can I ask something? Why request Jedi specifically? Wouldn't Republic intelligence or military investigators make more sense for this kind of situation?" The question earned him a sharp look from Rex, but Senator Chuchi seemed to appreciate his directness. "A fair question, Mr. Uzumaki." She turned to face him fully, her yellow eyes assessing. "2 reasons. First, the Jedi's independence from Republic bureaucracy means less chance of information leaks through official channels. Second," she hesitated briefly, "one of the terrorists was captured alive after the most recent attack. Before he could be properly interrogated, he exhibited unusual ability. Wise, strength and reflexes beyond normal parameters, even for trained operatives." "Force sensitivity?" Ahsoka asked, immediately alert. "That was my concern," Chuchi confirmed. "Though our security forces lack the expertise to confirm it. Unfortunately, the suspect died during transfer to a more secure facility, apparently from self-administered poison." The implications hung heavily in the air. Force-sensitive terrorists suggested either Sith involvement or perhaps rogue Jedi, both disturbing possibilities with far-reaching consequences. "We need to examine the body," Barris stated immediately. "And any evidence collected from the attack sites." "Already arranged," Chuchi assured her. "But conducted quietly, please. If word spreads that the Jedi are officially investigating, whoever is behind this will go to ground." "We'll maintain our cover as a cultural delegation," Ahsoka promised. "Which reminds me, the assembly reception tomorrow evening. We should discuss our approach." "Yes, the reception." For the first time, Chuchi's confident expression faltered slightly. Originally a ceremonial event to honor Pantora's anniversary of Republic membership. Now it's become politically charged. Representatives from both pro-Republic and neutrality factions will attend, alongside various corporate interests and cultural dignitaries. "A perfect opportunity to observe key players," Cody noted. "And a potential security nightmare," Rex countered. "Large gathering, multiple access points, high-profile targets including the senator herself." Naruto had been listening intently, processing the complex political dynamics. "Senator," he asked, "these, Pantora first, terrorists, do they have popular support? Or are they isolated extremists?" Chuchi gave him a considering look, evidently reassessing his political acumen. "Their messaging resonates with legitimate concerns many Pantorans share about becoming collateral damage in a galactic war. Our world has limited natural resources and defensive capabilities. The fear of becoming a military target is not irrational. But you support stronger Republic ties anyway," Naruto observed. "Why?" "Because isolation is an illusion," she replied without hesitation. "This war will reach us regardless of our stance. The choice isn't between involvement and neutrality, it's between having allies or facing threats alone." Naruto nodded thoughtfully. Her reasoning reminded him of the alliance formed between shinobi villages during the Fourth Great Ninja War, former enemies recognizing that unity offered the only chance against an overwhelming threat. We should establish operational parameters. Ahsoka redirected the conversation. Senator, with your permission, I'd like to assign Captain Rex and a security detail to supplement your personal protection. Barriss can examine the deceased terrorist and attack evidence. Naruto and I will handle reconnaissance at likely targets and the investigation of potential separatist connections. Agreed. Chuchi nodded. Though I should warn you, Pantora's chairman Kaicho remains skeptical of Republic intentions. His cooperation will be limited. We'll work within those constraints, Ahsoka assured her. Our priority is identifying and neutralizing the threat to Pantoran security, and to you personally, Senator. I appreciate your concern, but my safety is secondary to Pantora's stability. Chuchi responded firmly. This vote could determine my people's future for generations. We cannot allow terrorism and fear to dictate our path. As the meeting concluded, arrangements were made for secure accommodations and communication protocols. Naruto found himself assigned quarters within the diplomatic wing of the assembly building, a practical arrangement that placed him close to both Senator Chuchi and the heart of Pantoran political activity. The evening passed in preparation and preliminary investigation, while Barriss departed for the medical facility where the terrorist's body was being held. Ahsoka and Naruto reviewed security footage from previous attacks, searching for patterns or identifying characteristics among the perpetrators. They're well trained, Naruto observed as they watched masked figures move with military precision through a transportation hub moments before detonating explosives. Those aren't random extremists, those are professional operatives. I agree, Ahsoka nodded. The explosives placement shows tactical knowledge, maximum structural damage with surprisingly few casualties. They're not trying to kill people, Naruto realized. They want to cause fear and disruption, not mass casualties. That's unusual for terrorists. Or it suggests their true objective lies elsewhere, Ahsoka mused. These attacks could be diversions, drawing security resources away from something else entirely. Their analysis was interrupted by a secure comm signal from Barriss. Her blue holographic image flickered into view above Ahsoka's communicator. Her expression troubled. I've completed preliminary examination of the deceased terrorist, she reported without preamble. You should both come see this immediately. There are complications. The Pantoran medical facility occupied a modern complex on the city's outskirts, its architecture balancing functionality with the characteristic azure aesthetics of local design. Security was noticeably heavy, a response to recent events that had transformed routine medical services into potential targets. Barriss met them in a restricted laboratory section, her healers' robes exchanged for sterile medical attire. The normally composed Padawan appeared disturbed, her movements sharp with suppressed tension. What did you find? Ahsoka asked as Barriss led them through secure doors into a specialized examination room. Evidence of extensive modification, Barriss replied, activating a holographic display of medical scans. This individual has undergone surgical enhancements to muscle tissue, nervous system response times, and adrenal function. But it's not standard military-grade augmentation. The body lay covered on an examination table, only the face visible. A male Pantoran with traditional markings partially obscured by surgical scars near the temples and jaw. These modifications appear similar to protocols documented in recovered separatist research facilities, Barriss continued, highlighting specific anomalies in the scan, but with significant advancement beyond previously observed examples. Whoever did this has taken experimental techniques and refined them. So not force sensitivity, Ahsoka concluded, but artificial enhancement mimicking certain force user capabilities. Correct, but that's not the most concerning discovery. Barriss moved to the covered body, carefully pulling back the sheet to reveal the deceased's left forearm. There, partially hidden beneath blue skin, a distinctive mechanical implant was embedded in the flesh. This device was surgically installed, integrating directly with the subject's nervous system. Some kind of weapon? Naruto asked, leaning closer to examine the strange technology. No, Barriss's voice held uncharacteristic emotion. It's a control mechanism. This individual wasn't a willing terrorist, he was being remotely directed, his autonomy overridden by whoever controlled this implant. Silence fell as the implications sank in. Not ideological extremists but unwilling pawns, ordinary Pantorans converted into living weapons through invasive technology and against their will. That's Naruto struggled to find words adequate to the horror. That's worse than genjutsu. At least mind control techniques eventually wear off. This is permanent enslavement. Does Senator Chuchi know about this? Ahsoka asked sharply. Not yet, Barris replied. I wanted you both to verify my findings before taking this to her. If word spreads that Pantoran citizens are being forcibly converted into terrorists, the public panic could be devastating. We need to identify the source, Ahsoka decided. These modifications and implants require specialized facilities, surgical expertise, and significant resources. That narrows the possibilities. I can create shadow clones to investigate potential sites, Naruto offered. Medical centers, research facilities, anywhere with the necessary equipment. Good idea, but be extremely cautious, Ahsoka warned. Whoever is behind this has demonstrated sophistication and ruthlessness. We can't risk alerting them to our investigation. Trust me, Naruto assured her with a grim smile. Stealth operations are standard shinobi training. They formulated a plan. Barris would continue examining the evidence and coordinate with Rex on Senator Chuchi's security detail, while Ahsoka and Naruto conducted parallel investigations into potential facilities and separatist connections. Given the sensitivity of their discoveries, they agreed to maintain communication through secure channels only, with regular check-ins to ensure no one was compromised. As midnight approached, Naruto stood on a rooftop overlooking Pantora's capital city, its crystalline structures glowing with internal light against the perpetual twilight of the moon's extended day-night cycle. The bitter cold failed to penetrate his chakra-regulated body tempera. Chure as he formed the hand signs for his signature technique. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 20 perfect duplicates materialized around him, each receiving specific instructions before dispersing across the city. Unlike standard reconnaissance, which might focus on obvious military or political targets, Naruto directed his clones toward medical facilities, research centers, and industrial zones capable of housing the specialized equipment needed for the modifications they'd discovered. The real Naruto, meanwhile, headed toward the industrial district where the most recent terrorist attack had occurred. Security remained heavy in the area, but a simple transformation technique allowed him to assume the appearance of a Pantoran maintenance worker, complete with appropriate identification and EQ. Equipment scanned and memorized earlier from assembly building staff. The blast site had been partially cleared, though structural damage remained evident in twisted support beams and shattered transparent steel panels. Naruto moved methodically through the area, his enhanced senses detecting residual chakra signatures that most investigators would miss entirely. There was something familiar about the explosive residue, not in its composition but in its deployment pattern. Precise, he muttered to himself. Almost surgical in placement, like someone who understands the artistic aspects of destruction, not just the technical ones. He collected samples where possible, documented unusual patterns, and was preparing to move to a secondary site when a sudden surge of memories from one of his dispersed clones hit him with disorienting force. The clone had discovered something significant before being forcibly dispersed, not by security forces but by another infiltrator. The memories crystal, IZED into coherent images, a nondescript warehouse in the manufacturing district, ostensibly abandoned but showing signs of recent activity. Power readings inconsistent with vacancy. And most importantly, a glimpse of a pale woman with twin lightsabers, not Jedi blue or green, but glowing crimson, before the clone was destroyed by a force choke. Naruto's pulse quickened. The Sith presence they'd suspected had just been confirmed. And in the most direct way possible. He needed to alert Ahsoka immediately, but the tactical part of his mind urged caution. If he rushed to confront this adversary without preparation, he might lose the opportunity to discover the full extent of the operation. He created another shadow clone, sending it to deliver a message to Ahsoka while he continued toward the warehouse location. Moving with the silent efficiency that had earned shinobi their fearsome reputation in his world. The freezing Pantoran night concealed his approach as effectively as any genjutsu. Ice crystals in the air diffusing light and sound into misleading patterns. The warehouse occupied an unremarkable position in a row of similar structures, distinguished only by subtle security maya. Shures invisible to casual observation. Motion sensors with non-standard configurations, signal jammers disguised as climate control units, and most tellingly, the complete absence of rodents or native insects that infested neighboring buildings. Naruto positioned himself on an adjacent rooftop, using the transformation technique to blend his appearance with the ice-covered ventilation equipment. From this vantage point, he could observe all approaches to the warehouse while remaining effectively invisible to conventional surveillance. His patience was rewarded after approximately 40 minutes. When a nondescript cargo speeder approached from the city center, its running lights dimmed and transponder clearly deactivated. It paused before the warehouse's loading bay, a precise security code. E transmitted that caused doors to iris open without human intervention. As the speeder entered, Naruto caught a glimpse of its cargo, medical capsules similar to those used in Republic field hospitals. Each large enough to contain a humanoid body. The doors sealed immediately behind the vehicle, but not before Naruto created a shadow clone that slipped through the narrowing gap with milliseconds to spare. The clone's mission was reconnaissance only, gather intelligence without engaging, then disperse itself to transfer information back to the original. 15 tense minutes passed before the clone's memories flooded back, accompanied by a phantom sensation of searing pain across its throat. The intelligence it provided was disturbing yet invaluable: 8 medical capsules containing unconscious Pantorans. Advanced surgical equipment arranged in assembly line configuration, and most significantly, confirmation of the pale woman's identity, and operative matching descriptions of Asajj Ventress, Count Dooku's notorious assassin. Naruto had just processed this information when his instincts screamed a warning. He rolled sideways as a crimson lightsaber blade sliced through the space-high. S head had occupied a fraction of a second earlier, the superheated plasma instantly melting the ice around it into steam that billowed in the frigid air. Impressive reflexes, came a coldly melodious voice behind him. Most beings would be dead already. Naruto sprang to his feet, facing his attacker with kunai already drawn. The woman before him matched the clone's memories perfectly, chalk-white skin stretched over sharp features. Cold blue eyes assessing him with predatory intelligence, and twin lightsabers humming with lethal energy in her gracefully extended hands. Asajj Ventress, he stated rather than asked, shifting into a defensive stance. Sith assassin and separatist operative. A thin smile curved her bloodless lips. My reputation precedes me. Unfortunately, I can't say the same for you. No records match your particular signature. The way she emphasized that last word sent a chill through Naruto that had nothing to do with Pantora's freezing temperature. She was, NT referring to his appearance but to his energy. She could sense his chakra, recognize it as something distinct from the Force. I'm new around here, Naruto replied, mind racing through tactical options. Direct combat against lightsabers required careful strategy. His kunai wouldn't withstand that plasma energy, though chakra reinforcement might allow momentary deflection. Clearly, Ventress began circling slowly, her movements fluid as water despite the treacherous footing. The question is, why would the Jedi deploy an unknown asset to this insignificant backwater? What makes Pantora suddenly so interesting? Maybe I'm just a tourist, Naruto countered, matching her circular movement to maintain distance. Heard the Aurora displays are spectacular this time of year. Humor in the face of death. She observed with something almost like approval. Unusual for a Jedi lackey. Not a Jedi, Naruto corrected. And definitely nobody's lackey. No, you're certainly not Jedi trained, Ventress agreed. Her predatory gaze intensifying. Your energy signature is chaotic. Untamed, yet controlled with surprising precision. Her head tilted slightly, as if listening to something beyond normal hearing. And there's something else. Something darker, more powerful, buried beneath the surface. With a start, Naruto realized she was sensing Kurama, the Nine-Tails chakra resonating differently than his own. Even when dormant, the realization was troubling. If she could detect that distinction without special equipment or prior knowledge, she was more sensitive to energy patterns than he'd anticipated. She's probing at me, Kurama growled within Naruto's mindscape. Her energy, this force, it reaches differently than chakra. Be cautious, Kit. Whatever you're hiding, Ventress continued. Her lightsabers twirling in a hypnotic pattern, I'll discover after I've subdued you. My master will be most interested in examining such an unusual specimen. Sorry to disappoint, but I'm not interested in being anyone's science project. Naruto formed a familiar hand sign. Shadow clone jutsu. A dozen clones burst into existence around him, each immediately launchy. ing into action with coordinated precision. Ventress's eyes widened fractionally, the only indication of surprise from the otherwise composed assassin, before her lightsabers became crimson blurs, intercepting attacks from multiple directions simultaneously. Fascinating, she commented as she destroyed 3 clones in a single sweeping movement. Solid duplicates, not force projections. What other surprises do you offer? Rather than answering, Naruto and his remaining clones pressed the attack, forcing Ventress to continually adjust her defense against unpredictable angles. Though several more clones fell to her lightsabers, each provided valuable tactical data about her fighting style, a fluid form that emphasized economy of movement, turning defense seamlessly into counterattack with lethal precision. Wind style. Vacuum bullets. 2 clones simultaneously executed the technique, compressed air projectiles shooting toward Ventress from opposite directions. The assassin responded with impressive reflexes, one hand extending to absorb the frontal attack with what appeared to be a force barrier while she sidestepped the second assault. The maneuver left her momentarily overextended, an opening Naruto exploited instantly. A clone dropping from above with Rasengan formed and descending toward her exposed shoulder. At the last possible moment, Ventress released a pulse of force energy that disrupted the clone's trajectory, not enough to disperse it, but sufficient to turn a debilitating hit into a glancing blow. The Rasengan carved a furrow across her upper arm, drawing a hiss of pain and genuine surprise. What manner of energy is this? She demanded, eyes narrowing as she examined the spiraling damage pattern on her flesh. Not lightsaber, not blaster, not any weapon I've encountered. Like I said, Naruto replied, regrouping with his remaining clones, I'm new around here. The exchange had provided crucial information for both combatants. Ventress now recognized Naruto as a more significant threat than initially assessed, while Naruto had confirmed that his chakra-based techniques could affect force users, albeit with some degree of resistance. Their deadly dance might have continued, but the distant wail of security sirens changed the tactical situation. Someone, likely Ahsoka, receiving Naruto's warning, had alerted Pantoran authorities. The warehouse operation was compromised. Ventress assessed the changing circumstances with cold calculation. It seems our introduction must be abbreviated, she stated, backing toward the roof's edge. But I assure you, we will continue this conversation. Your unique abilities have piqued my interest. Not interested, Naruto retorted, though he made no move to prevent her retreat. Pursuing her alone, without Ahsoka or reinforcements, would be tactically unsound, especially with hostages potentially at risk in the warehouse below. Oh, but you should be, Ventress replied with unexpected intensity. Whatever you are, wherever you came from, you don't belong to this conflict. The Jedi will use you as a weapon, discard you when convenient. They fear what they don't understand, and you, my unusual friend, are beyond their understanding. With those parting words, she executed a graceful backflip off the roof, disappearing into the labyrinthine alleys below. Naruto considered pursuit for approximately 3 seconds before pragmatism prevailed. The warehouse contained evidence and potential victims requiring immediate attention. He created fresh shadow clones to establish a perimeter while he forced an entry point through a maintenance access panel, dropping silently into the facility's upper level. The interior confirmed his clones' earlier observations, medical equipment arranged for mass procedures, containment units for unwilling subjects, and most disturbingly, a fully operational assembly line for the neural implants they'd discovered in the deceased terrorist. Movement on the lower level caught his attention. 3 droids, not battle models but medical units, were rapidly disconnecting equipment and transferring data to portable storage devices. A clear evacuation protocol in response to the security alert. Naruto dispatched them with precision strikes before they could complete the data purge, preserving crucial evidence. More concerning were the 8 stasis pods his Lone had observed earlier, each containing an unconscious Pantoran at various stages of surgical modification. Before he could determine how to safely extract them, the warehouse's main doors exploded inward, admitting a squad of Pantoran security forces led by Ahsoka, her twin lightsabers illuminating the cavernous space with ethereal green-white light. Naruto, she called upon spotting him. Status: Ventress escaped, he reported, jumping down to the main level. But we've secured the facility. 8 victims in medical stasis, evidence of the implant manufacturing operation, and some key ND of surgical droids I disabled before they could wipe data. Ahsoka's expression shifted from battle readiness to grim satisfaction. Good work. Medical teams are standing by. She gestured to the Pantoran security chief, who began coordinating the delicate extraction of the stasis pods and evidence collection. As the operation transitioned from combat to rescue and investigation, Naruto pulled Ahsoka aside, lowering his voice. Ventress recognized something about my chakra, sensed Kurama somehow. She seemed fascinated by it. Concern darkened Ahsoka's eyes. That's troubling. Ventress isn't just an assassin. She's a Sith apprentice with significant force sensitivity. If she reports your abilities to Count Dooku, then we've just confirmed the Sith interest in me that the Council suspected. Naruto completed the thought. But we've also gained something valuable, confirmation that the Separatists are behind these attacks, and evidence of their methods. True. Ahsoka nodded, surveying the warehouse as forensic teams documented everything. Senator Chuchi will have irrefutable proof of Separatist interference to present to the Assembly. Speaking of the senator, Naruto's tone grew more serious. We need to strengthen her security immediately. If Ventress was willing to abandon this operation, it means they have contingency plans. The senator will become their prima target once this evidence goes public. The night extended into early morning as they secured the warehouse, transported the victims to proper medical facilities, and briefed both Captain Rex and Barriss on their discoveries. Dawn was breaking over Pantora's frozen landscape when they finally returned to the assembly building to report to Senator Chuchi. Despite the early hour, they found her fully dressed and alert in her office, surrounded by data pads displaying security reports and political analyses. Dark circles beneath her yellow eyes suggested she had barely slept, though her posture remained impeccable. Senator, Ahsoka began formally, we have significant developments to report. Chuchi listened intently as they detailed the night's discoveries, the warehouse operation, Ventress's presence confirming Separatist involvement, and the horrific truth behind the Pantora First attacks. To her credit, the young politician absorbed the disturbing information without visible emotional reaction, though her hands tightened progressively around the datapad she held. So ordinary Pantorans, my people, are being abducted, surgically modified against their will, then programmed to commit acts of terrorism in the name of a fictional extremist group, she summarized, her voice controlled but underscored with carefully managed anger. All to manipulate our political process regarding Republic military presence. That's correct, Barriss confirmed. The medical team has confirmed that all 8 rescued individuals were reported missing within the past 3 weeks. None had connections to anti-Republic movements or extremist ideologies. This evidence is definitive, Ahsoka added. Asajj Ventress's involvement proves direct Separatist orchestration, not merely influence or support of local elements. Senator Chuchi set aside her datapad, rising to approach the large viewport overlooking the assembly plaza below. For several moments she stood in silence, the pale light of dawn illuminating her features as she processed the implications. The assembly vote is scheduled for tomorrow, she finally said. This evidence must be presented immediately, but with extreme care. If mishandled, it could create panic rather than clarity. The chairman should be informed first, Barriss suggested. Despite his neutrality stance, this violation of Pantoran sovereignty should concern him deeply. Indeed, Chuchi turned back to face them. I'll arrange an emergency session of the Security Committee for midday. In the meantime, I would request your continued vigilance. If the Separatists are willing to go to such lengths, they won't abandon their objective easily. We've already enhanced your security detail, Rex reported. Additional troopers are stationed throughout the assembly building, with particular focus on access points to your offices and residence. And I've created shadow clones patrolling in disguise, Naruto added. Any suspicious activity gets reported immediately, without alerting potential hostiles to our surveillance. The senator offered a tired but genuine smile. Thank you, all of you. Her gaze lingered momentarily on Naruto. Especially you, Mr. Uzumaki. Commander Tano informed me of your direct confrontation with Ventress, a risk few would willingly take. Just doing what needed doing, Naruto replied with characteristic modesty. And please, it's just Naruto, Mr. Uzumaki. Makes me feel like I'm in trouble with the academy instructors back home. This drew a small laugh from Chuchi, perhaps the first genuine moment of levity since their arrival on Pantora. Very well, Naruto. Though I admit I'm curious about this academy and home you reference so casually. Perhaps when this crisis has passed, you might share more about your background. I'd like that, Naruto agreed, surprising himself with the sincerity behind the words. For now, Ahsoka interjected gently, we should all rest while we can. The coming days will require clear heads and sharp reflexes. Rest proved elusive, however, as preparations for the Security Committee presentation consumed the following hours. Barris coordinated with Medica L experts to document the implant technology and surgical modifications, while Ahsoka and Rex developed enhanced security protocols for the upcoming assembly vote. Naruto, meanwhile, maintained a network of shadow clones monitoring key locations throughout the capital, his chakra reserves allowing constant surveillance that would have exhausted conventional forces. By mid-afternoon, when they assembled for the closed Security Committee session, fatigue had settled into bone-deep weariness for all involved. The committee members, 5 senior Pantoran officials representing various political factions, received the evidence with reactions ranging from horror to skepticism to thinly veiled panic. Chairman Kai Cho, a stout Pantoran male whose elaborate facial markings and ornate attire proclaimed his elevated status, appeared particularly disturbed by the implications. These accusations against the Separatist alliance are extraordinary, he stated, examining holographic evidence of the warehouse operation. If verified, they constitute not merely terrorism but an act of war against Pantora itself. The evidence is conclusive, Chairman, Senator Chuchi responded firmly. Asajj Ventress's presence alone confirms Count Dooku's direct involvement. Her status as his personal assassin and lieutenant is well documented across the galaxy. And you, the chairman turned his attention to Naruto, who had been introduced simply as a Republic security consultant, you engaged this Ventress in direct combat. Yet you stand here uninjured. She retreated when Pantoran security forces approached, Naruto explained. Deliberately understating his role, her priority seemed to be preserving the operation rather than confrontation. The chairman's expression suggested he found this explanation insufficient but chose not to press further in the current forum. The assembly must be informed before tomorrow's vote. This evidence fundamentally changes the security calculus for Pantora. With respect, Chairman, an older committee member interjected, releasing this information prematurely could incite public panic. These victims are citizens with families, communities. Controlling the narrative will be essential. Senator Chuchi agreed. I propose a measured approach. Release confirmed facts about separatist interference without specific details regarding the modification technology. Focus on the victims as unwilling participants rather than the graphic nature of their exploitation. The discussion continued for another hour, policy considerations and security protocols debated with increasing urgency as the implications expanded beyond Pantora to potential similar operations on other Republic worlds. Throughout the proceedings, Naruto observed the political dynamics with growing interest, noting alliances, conflicts, and the subtle power struggle between Chairman Kai Cho's authority and Senator Chuchi's moral persuasion. When the session finally adjourned, with agreements reached on public disclosure protocols and enhanced security measures, the participants dispersed with visible tension. Only Senator Chuchi, Chairman Kai Cho, and the Jedi team remained in the secure conference room. I must address the assembly leadership immediately, the chairman announced, gathering his formal robes around him. Senator Chuchi, your presence will be required at the executive session this evening. His gaze shifted to Ahsoka. Padawan Tano, I appreciate the Republic's assistance in this matter, but must emphasize that the final security decisions for Pantora remain sovereign. Of course, Chairman, Ahsoka replied diplomatically. We serve in an advisory capacity only. After the chairman's departure, Senator Chuchi allowed herself a moment of visible exhaustion, shoulders dropping slightly as she massaged her temples. That went as well as could be expected. The chairman is traditional in his views, but not unreasonable when presented with irrefutable evidence. He seemed uncomfortable with the Republic's involvement, Naruto observed. Kai Cho represents the old guard, Chuchi explained. Pantora has maintained independence for generations. only joining the Republic within the last century. He views excessive reliance on external support as a path to cultural dilution and eventual submission. Not an entirely irrational concern, Barris noted quietly. Many worlds have lost distinctive traditions through Republic integration. True, Chuchi acknowledged, which is why I've advocated for balanced engagement, partnership rather than dependency. But this separatist operation changes everything. They've violated our most basic sovereignty, weaponizing our own citizens against us. The conversation was interrupted by Captain Rex's urgent entrance. Senator, Commanders, security alert at the primary power distribution center. Possible explosive device detected during routine scanning. Another attack. Ahsoka was immediately alert. Timing suggests a response to our discovery of their operation. Or a pre-planned contingency, Naruto suggested. Either way, we should investigate immediately. Rapid response protocols engaged with military efficiency. While Rex coordinated with Pantoran security forces to establish a perimeter around the threatened facility, Ahsoka and Naruto prepared to assess and neutralize the potential explosive. Barris would remain with Senator Chuchi, providing both protection and a secure communication link. The power distribution center occupied a sprawling complex on the city's northeastern quadrant. Its significance marked by multiple security layers and the constant hum of massive generators providing energy to the capital's vital infrastructure. Approaching in a military transport with local security escorts, Naruto could immediately sense something amiss in the facility's operational rhythm. Something's wrong, he murmured to Ahsoka as they passed through the final security checkpoint. The guards are too rigid, the patterns too perfect. Ahsoka nodded almost imperceptibly, her montrals, the hollow horns atop her head, twitching slightly as she extended her force senses. Agreed. This feels staged. They proceeded with heightened caution, following the Pantoran security chief through the facility's main control center toward the substation where scanning equipment. NT had detected anomalous readings consistent with explosive components. Throughout their progress, Naruto maintained peripheral awareness, noting security camera positions, personnel movements, and potential evacuation routes with practiced efficiency. The substation itself appeared unremarkable. Standard power regulation equipment, monitoring consoles, and maintenance access panels. Pantoran technicians had partially disassembled a junction box where the suspicious components had been detected, revealing what appeared to be a crude but functional explosive device. Primitive design, Rex observed, examining the device from a safe distance. Pressure trigger with redundant detonator. Effective but unsophisticated, unlike the precision demonstrated in previous attacks. Too obvious, Naruto agreed. Instinct screaming warnings. This is a distraction. Ahsoka completed his thought, her lightsabers suddenly in hand though not yet activated. The real target is elsewhere. The realization crystallized into certainty when Naruto received a sudden flood of memories from a dispersed shadow clone, one stationed near Senator Chuchi's offices in the assembly building. The clone had detected a stealth infiltration attempt before being destroyed by a precision blaster shot. The senator, Naruto stated urgently. They're moving against Chuchi now, using this to draw us away. Oka was already activating her communicator. Barris, security alert, possible imminent threat to the senator. Acknowledge. Static answered her call, a deliberate communication blackout affecting the assembly district. We need to get back there immediately, Ahsoka decided. Rex, secure this site and confirm this device is neutralized. Naruto and I will return to protect the senator. I can get there faster alone. Naruto countered. Flying Thunder God technique. You never mentioned a teleportation ability, Ahsoka said with surprise. It's not exactly teleportation, Naruto explained quickly. I can instantly transport to special seals if placed. I put one in the senator's office as a precaution. Ahsoka hesitated only momentarily before nodding. Go. I'll follow with reinforcements as quickly as possible. Naruto formed the necessary hand sign, focusing on the special kunai he had concealed in Senator Chuchi's private office, a precautionary measure that now proved prescient. Space compressed around him, the distinctive sensation of the Flying Thunder God technique displacing him across kilometers in an instant. He materialized in the senator's office to find chaos, furniture overturned. Signs of struggle evident, but no immediate presence of either Chuchi or Barris. A faint trail of blood droplets led toward the private exit, suggesting someone injured had been moved, willingly or otherwise, through that route. Creating shadow clones to search adjacent areas, Naruto followed the blood trail, moving with silent urgency through service corridors designed for staff discretion. The droplets led to a maintenance elevator reserved for building operations personnel, currently stopped 3 levels below at a sub-level containing archive storage and emergency shelters. Rather than risk the elevator, which could be monitored or trapped, Naruto opted for a more direct approach. Locating a ventilation shaft, he used chakra-enhanced strength to remove the grating. Then descended through the narrow passage with shinobi agility. Emerging into a dimly lit corridor lined with secure storage units, Naruto extended his senses fully, filtering the ambient sounds of air circulation systems and power conduits until he detected something critical, the distinctive hum of lightsabers engaged in combat. He sprinted toward the sound, rounding a corner to discover Bar ISS Afi engaged in desperate defense against 4 attackers, not droids or conventional mercenaries, but modified Pantorans similar to those they'd rescued from the warehouse. Unlike those victims, however, these operatives were fully conscious and combat-ready, their movements enhanced by cybernetic implants visible at their temples and joints. Behind Barris, Senator Chuchi knelt beside a fallen Pantoran guard, applying pressure to what appeared to be a serious blaster wound in the guard's shoulder. The senator herself sported a bleeding cut across her forehead, though her expression showed determination rather than fear. Naruto, Barris called upon seeing him, relief momentarily breaking through her combat focus. They ambushed us during evacuation, some kind of nerve agent in the ventilation system incapacitated most of the security detail. Without hesitation, Naruto launched himself into the fray, shadow clones materializing alongside him to engage multiple opponents simultaneously. The modified attackers demonstrated extraordinary speed and coordination, clearly the finished product of the warehouse operation they had disrupted. Unlike conventional opponents, these attackers showed no concern for self-preservation, focusing entirely on their objective even when sustaining injuries that would incapacitate normal combatants. Thereafter the senator, Barris warned, parrying a vibroblade strike that would have severed her arm. 3 more are pursuing a decoy transport, but these identified her despite the security protocols. Remote direction, Naruto realized, noting the systematic nature of their assault. Someone's controlling them in real time, updating tactical information. This insight provided the key to an effective counter-strategy. Rather than attempting to defeat each attacker individually, a process complicated by their enhanced durability, Naruto created a specific shadow clone that transformed its appearance to match Senator Chuchi's, then raced down an adjacent corridor. Deliberately drawing attention, 2 attackers immediately broke off to pursue the decoy, their programming prioritizing target acquisition over current engagement. This reduced the immediate threat, allowing Barris to switch from defense to controlled offense while Naruto engaged the remaining attackers directly. "We need to take at least one alive," he called to Barris. "Find out who's controlling them and from where." "Agreed," she replied, adjusting her lightsaber technique to target extremities rather than vital areas. The fight progressed with increasing intensity, the confined space limiting mobility while amplifying the lethality of each exchange. Naruto found his taijutsu skills severely tested by opponents whose cybernetic enhancements granted them reaction times approaching force user levels. A critical moment came when one attacker managed to slip past their defense, lunging toward Senator Chuchi with single-minded purpose. Naruto reacted instantly, interposing himself between assailant and target. The vibroblade intended for the senator's heart plunged into Naruto's shoulder instead, the enhanced strength behind it driving weapon completely through muscle and narrowly missing bone. Rather than retreat from the injury, Naruto used the attacker's momentary overextension to his advantage, gripping the embedded arm and handling chakra in a precise pattern that overloaded the neural implants controlling the assailant. The modified Pantoran collapsed instantly, cybernetic systems short-circuited by the chakra pulse. "How did you?" Barris began, dispatching her opponent with a precise force push that rendered him unconscious without fatal injury. "Chakra disruption," Naruto explained tersely, wincing as he extracted the vibroblade from his shoulder. "Same principle as breaking genjutsu, just adapted to their implant frequency." With the immediate threat neutralized and the decoy clone successfully leading the remaining attackers on a futile chase, they could finally attend to Senator Chuchi and the injured guard. Barris immediately shifted to healer mode, applying force techniques to stabilize the Gua Road's condition while Naruto created additional shadow clones to secure the area and monitor for further threats. "Are you all right, Senator?" Naruto asked, kneeling beside Chuchi despite his own bleeding shoulder. "Yes, thanks to both of you," she replied, her composure remarkable given the circumstances. "Though I fear this attack carries implications beyond my personal safety." The timing, immediately following the security committee meeting. "There's a leak," Naruto concluded grimly. "Someone with access to your security protocols and schedule." "Not just anyone," Barris added, looking up from her treatment of the guard. "Someone with high-level clearance. The evacuation route we were using is classified information, known only to senior assembly staff and security." Senator Chuchi's expression hardened. "Chairman Kai Cho was briefed on my security protocols this morning, as were the other committee members." The implication hung heavy in the air, the possibility that someone at the highest level of Pantoran government might be compromised, either willingly or through coercion. Before they could explore this disturbing prospect further, Ahsoka arrived with reinforcements. Having fought her way through additional security complications to reach them. "The assembly building is secure," she reported after confirming everyone's condition. "But communications are still being jammed across the government district. Someone doesn't want us coordinating or reporting what we've discovered," Senator Chuchi suggested. "This attack, coming so quickly after the committee was informed, it confirms separatist infiltration at the highest levels. We need to secure these attackers for examination," Barris stated, gesturing to the unconscious modified operatives. Our implants may provide data on the control mechanism and its source. "And we need to get you to a safe location," Senator Ahsoka added. "Somewhere unexpected, outside normal security protocols." "I know just the place," Chuchi replied with surprising decisiveness. "My family maintains a private residence in the eastern mountains. It's not in any official records, a retreat passed through Genera Tions rather than a formal governmental facility." "Perfect," Naruto agreed, already formulating a security plan. "My shadow clones can establish a perimeter while maintaining the appearance that you still within the assembly security grid." The evacuation proceeded with carefully coordinated precision. While medical teams secured the unconscious attackers for transport to military medical facilities, Naruto created specialized shadow clones to manage various aspects of their extraction, some disguised as Senator Chuchi to create multiple potential targets, others transformed to match security personnel, and a few using transformation techniques to appear as unremarkable maintenance droids. Ahsoka coordinated with Rex to arrange discreet transportation, deliberately avoiding official channels that might be compromised. Barris, meanwhile, treated Naruto's shoulder wound with a combination of force healing and conventional medical techniques. "You were fortunate," she commented as she applied a specialized Bacta dressing. "The blade missed major vessels by millimeters." "Fast healing," Naruto explained with a slight smile. "Another perk of being a Jinchuriki. Still, unnecessary risks should be avoided." Barris chided gently. "Your abilities are impressive, but not unlimited. Says the person who was facing 4 enhanced assassins alone when I arrived," Naruto countered with good-natured teasing. A faint blush colored Barris's tattooed cheeks. Point taken. Senator Chuchi approached as Barris completed her treatment, her formal attire exchanged for nondescript PT civilian clothing that would attract less attention during their extraction. Despite the change in appearance and the bandage across her forehead, she maintained the dignified bearing that seemed intrinsic to her character. "How's your shoulder?" she inquired, genuine concern evident in her voice. "Already improving," Naruto assured her. "I've had much worse. Nevertheless, you have my profound gratitude." She placed a hand gently on his uninjured shoulder, the gesture conveying sincerity beyond formal diplomatic courtesy. "You risked your life to protect me, someone you've known for barely a day. That speaks to exceptional character." "It's what anyone would do," Naruto responded automatically, though he recognized the sentiment as both genuine and somewhat naive even as he spoke it. In truth, willingness to sacrifice for others was far from universal, a reality he had learned through difficult experience. I think we both know that's not true, Chuchi replied with surprising insight. But your modesty is as admirable as your courage. Their moment of connection was interrupted by Ahsoka's return with evacuation details. Transport is ready, she reported. We'll move in separate groups to minimize visibility. Senator, you'll travel with Naruto through service tunnels to the southwestern exit. Barris and I will create diversions at northern and eastern checkpoints. And if we encounter additional hostiles? Chuchi asked practically. That's why you're with Naruto, Ahsoka replied with a hint of a smile. His shadow clones provide both advance warning and numerical advantage if needed. As final preparations were made for their departure, Naruto found himself impressed by Senator Chuchi's composure. Despite being targeted for assassination, discovering traitors within her government, and facing uncertainty about Pantora's political future, she maintained focus on immediate necessities while planning strategic responses. In many ways, she reminded him of Tsunade, the Hokage's steel beneath diplomatic veneer. Their journey through Pantora's capital proceeded without major incident, though Naruto's shadow clones detected and neutralized two serve Ilan's teams attempting to track their movement. The modified transport, a civilian cargo vehicle with hidden military-grade systems, carried them beyond the city limits into Pantora's rugged eastern mountains, where ancient glaciers had carved dramatic valleys between razor-edged peaks. Senator Chuchi's family retreat proved to be a surprisingly modest structure built directly into a mountainside. Its exterior deliberately weathered to blend with the natural rock formations. Inside, however, the space opened into comfortable chambers warmed by geothermal systems and illuminated by cleverly designed light wells that captured and amplified Pantora's perpetual twilight. This has been in my family for 9 generations, Chuchi explained as they established security perimeters and communication protocols. Originally a ceremonial retreat for spiritual contemplation, later adapted as a refuge during historical conflicts. Few outside my immediate family know of its existence. It's perfect, Ahsoka approved, examining the natural defensive advantages of the location. Limited approaches, excellent visibility of surrounding terrain, and completely separate from official networks that might be compromised. As evening settled over the mountains, bringing Pantora's temperature to levels that would be lethal to unprotected travelers, they gathered in the retreat's central chamber. A natural stone hearth radiated welcome heat, while secure communication equipment established carefully encrypted channels to Republic forces and trusted Pantoran officials. The chairman has ordered a complete security lockdown of the assembly, Rex reported via holographic projection. Tomorrow's vote has been postponed pending investigation of today's attack. An understandable precaution, Senator Chuchi acknowledged. Though delay serves separatist interests by prolonging uncertainty. We've identified 3 of the modified attackers, Barris added, reviewing medical data transmit from the secure facility where they were being treated. All reported missing within the past month, all with military or security backgrounds, suggesting they were specifically selected for combat effectiveness once modified. And the control mechanism? Ahsoka asked. Sophisticated beyond anything previously documented, Barris replied grimly. The implants interface directly with the brain's decision-making centers, allowing remote operators to override conscious control while maintaining access to the subject's training and muscle memory. Can they be removed? Senator Chuchi asked. The political implications temporarily secondary to humanitarian concerns. Possibly, with specialized equipment and expertise, Barris confirmed. I've requested medical support from the Jedi Temple healers who specialize in neurological force techniques. The conversation continued late into the night, strategies formulated and contingencies planned for various scenarios. Throughout the discussions, Naruto observed Senator Chuchi's methodical approach to crisis management, prioritizing immediate security concerns while simultaneously developing political responses to strengthen Pantora's position regardless of the investigation's outcome. When the others finally retired to rest, Naruto remained alert, establishing a network of shadow clones around the retreat's perimeter despite Ahsoka's assurance that she would take first watch. His enhanced stamina, combined with the lingering adrenaline from the day's events, made sleep elusive. He stood at a viewing portal carved into the mountainside, watching ice crystals dance in the perpetual twilight of Pantora's atmosphere, when soft footsteps announced Senator Chuchi's approach. "Trouble sleeping?" she asked, joining him at the viewport. "Just being cautious," Naruto replied. Too many thoughts competing for attention. She offered a tired smile. Political calculations, security concerns, questions about who among my colleagues I can still trust. You handled yourself well today, Naruto observed. Many politicians would have crumbled under that kind of pressure. Pantoran diplomatic training is rigorous, she explained. We're taught from childhood that composure in crisis is non-negotiable. A hint of wry humor entered her voice. Though I admit, assassination attempts weren't specifically covered in the curriculum. Still, Naruto insisted, what I saw today went beyond training. That was genuine courage. Chuchi seemed momentarily taken aback by the directness of his compliment. Thank you, she said finally. Coming from someone who literally took a blade meant for me, that means something. Silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, but thoughtful. Outside, Pantora's frozen lands. Cape glittered beneath aurora displays that painted the sky in shifting curtains of blue and green. Earlier, Chuchi said eventually, you mentioned an academy, instructors. Yet Commander Tano explained you're not from a known world. Would you tell me something about where you come from? Who you are when you're not saving senators from assassins? The question was asked with genuine curiosity rather than diplomatic maneuvering, prompting Naruto to consider a real answer rather than the carefully edited version he typically provided. I'm from a place called Konohagakure, the village hidden in the leaves, he began, surprising himself with the nostalgia that colored his voice. One of 5 major villages in what we call the elemental nations. I'm a shinobi, a ninja, though that probably means something different here than in my world. And what does it mean there? Originally, assassins, spies, mercenaries. Naruto smiled slightly at her raised eyebrow. Not so different from your separatists, in some ways. But over generations, the hidden villages evolved. We became protectors instead of just killers, guiding our nations instead of just serving them from shadows. A remarkable evolution, Chuchi observed thoughtfully. And your position within this village? Naruto hesitated, unaccustomed to discussing his status without the context of his world's history. I was trained to become Hokage, the leader of my village, when I was brought here. It's a position earned through both strength and wisdom, protecting everyone in the village regardless of status or background. Like a planetary governor, then, Chuchi suggested, seeking familiar parallels. Something like that, Naruto agreed, though the comparison felt inadequate. But more personal, the Hokage knows villagers by name, trains the next generation, takes missions alongside others when needed. Sounds more fulfilling than Senate politics, Chuchi remarked with unexpected candor. Most days I navigate bureaucracy rather than actually helping people. Yet you risked everything to expose this separatist plot, Naruto reminded her. That's not bureaucracy, that's leadership. The senator studied him with renewed interest, as if seeing past the unusual abilities and foreign mannerisms to something recognizable, a kindred spirit who understood the burden of responsibility toward others. You're an unusual diplomat, Naruto Uzumaki, she finally said, a genuine smile softening her formal features. Refreshingly direct. Not really a diplomat at all, he admitted with a grin. Just someone who believes in speaking plainly and doing what's right. Perhaps that's exactly what diplomacy should be, she suggested, rather than what it so often becomes. Their conversation might have continued, but a sudden alert from one of Naruto's perimeter shadow clones interrupted the moment. The clone had detected movement approaching from the northwest, a single figure navigating the treacherous mountain terrain with inhuman grace despite the lethal cold. We have company, Naruto stated, instantly alert. One individual, moving too efficiently for normal capabilities in these conditions. Senator Chuchi immediately moved to activate the retreat's security systems, while Naruto created fresh shadow clones to intercept the intruder. Ahsoka and Barris, alerted by the security protocols, emerged from their respective quarters already armed and battle-ready. Description. Ahsoka demanded concisely. Humanoid, moving rapidly across terrain that should be impassable, Naruto reported. As information filtered back from his surveillance clones. And, using what appears to be force techniques to maintain balance on ice formations. Ventress, Ahsoka concluded grimly. She must have tracked us somehow. Impossible, Barris objected. We followed complete extraction protocols, used unmarked transport, and this location isn't in any database. Unless, Senator Chuchi suggested quietly. Someone who knows of this place provided the information. Someone with personal knowledge of my family. The implications of such intimate betrayal hung heavily in the air, but tactical necessities took precedence over emotional responses. Naruto quickly outlined a defense strategy utilizing the retreat's natural features and his shadow clone's flexibility, while Ahsoka coordinated W.I.T.H. Rex to arrange potential reinforcements. As they prepared to face this new threat, Naruto found himself exchanging a meaningful glance with Senator Chuchi, an unspoken commitment that transcended their brief acquaintance. Whatever came next, whatever revelations awaited regarding traitors within her government, she would not face it alone. The true battle for Pantora's future, and perhaps a crucial piece of the puzzle regarding Naruto's arrival in this galaxy, approached through the frozen night, determination matching their own step for relentless step. Chapter 3 End. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.